Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto changes his identity part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Get out of here, freak. Naruto gazed at the librarian with a detached look on his face. This sort of behavior from the villagers was nothing new. For his entire 7-year life he had known only apathy at best and outright scorn at worst from the villagers in Konoha. Naruto sighed and placed the book down as he left to exit the library, knowing that there was no way he would convince the librarian to let him stay and read. For the last year, Naruto had taken to sneaking into the library so he could read the academy books that were supposed to be issued to him. Surprise, surprise, the books he received were in horrible condition and contained information that he suspected was false. As he walked down the street, he ignored the glares of the people and said to himself, "Damn, not even 5 minutes this time indeed." Yesterday night he was able to spend almost an hour hiding deep in the shelves. Lately, Naruto has been trying to master his first jutsu, the henge. He knew that once he had mastered this jutsu, his stealth incursions into the library would be much more effective, at least on the civilian librarians. He was hoping to get more clarification on how the henge worked other than making the ram hand seal, channeling chakra, and imagining what to look like. Oh well, just practice, I guess, Naruto said to himself. Henge, Naruto shouted. As he looked down into the pond's edge, he saw himself staring back. Nothing had happened. Damn it, what the heck am I doing wrong? Naruto thought frustratingly. For the last few hours Naruto had been practicing in the forest outskirts of Konoha. As evidence, the training had been less than fruitful, a lot less fruitful. As this was his first jutsu, it was not just a matter of figuring out the eccentricities of this jutsu, it was learning how to do jutsu period. He knew he had the hand seal down perfectly, as he had badgered the old man Hokage to make sure all of his hand seals were as perfect as could be. He knew he could channel chakra, as evidenced by the blue hue that appeared when he really tried. By process of elimination that must leave the mental aspect. He sat down on the grass as he pondered the mental side of his first jutsu. He didn't know quite what was supposed to be going on inside of his head. He had tried imagining everything from different hair colors to complete body changes, but none of them had worked. Okay, think. It has to be about more than just imagination. There's something I'm missing or just overlooking. Okay, let's think about it like this, he thought, coming up with what he hoped was something new. I'm looking for a way to change my appearance. The hand seal and the chakra are the physical requirements, and the imagination is the mental requirement, so maybe I'm looking for a way to connect the physical and mental, he theorized. But what the hell could that be? I can't give up, I won't give up, Naruto yelled, determined. Like the old man says, I just need the will of fire. He paused and thought about that for a minute. Could it be that simple, he said to himself? Was willpower the only thing missing in the equation? Willpower may be a simple concept, but put into practice it was anything but. At that point Naruto knew what he had to do. He had to decide what he wanted, what he needed. He knew that this was the first true step into the world of ninja. He needed the change, he needed to hide himself, he needed to disappear if he had any chance at succeeding in this village. He imagined his face, his hair, his body, what he had spent every day dreaming of what he could look like. Not hot or cute or even noticeable, no, he needed to be common, plain, forgettable. He needed it more than anything else. He subconsciously felt his hands form into the ram hand seal, felt his chakra stir, and said with a calm voice, henge. He used the word as a trigger and forced his body to take the form willed it to. He had no need to look at the water, he knew he had done it. Naruto spent the next week refining his first jutsu and began to make a mental list of the things to do with his newfound disguise. He knew that this was going to open new doors for him. First of all, he could finally be able to get a library card and check out books. He just had to be careful about only going there when there were civilians manning the desk. He was unsure of the skill level other ninja would have to be in order to detect him. Another thing he was looking forward to was buying any food for their real price. Although Naruto had truly loved ramen to begin with, eating it at every meal simply because it was cheap was getting annoying. There was also one other item on the list that he was both looking forward to and fearing. Now that he had a way to disguise himself, perhaps he could come up with a way to find out why he was hated. Ever since he had observed other children, he knew that no one else was treated like he was. Every adult he had encountered so far had known the reason and not a single one would tell him. He had begged the Hokage and the Ikarakas over and over to tell him why, but they refused every time. Naruto already had a rough idea of how to get some answers, find some drunk people, pretend he was a traveler, and buy one of them a drink in order to get some answers. He had encountered drunks from time to time and preferred to avoid them, but the closest that anyone had come to telling him why he was hated was when they were drunk. Unfortunately, they were always silenced either by friends and even once by an ANBU before they could reveal the reason. Well, that was for later. For now, he decided to do some preparation. After living in Konoha as Uzumaki Naruto, he knew that he wanted life under Henge to be as safe as possible. One of the things he had come up for now was to watch other academy students so that he could impersonate them without raising any suspicion. He knew that if word got out that Uzumaki Naruto was wandering around under a henge, things would get much more difficult. In fact, now that he thought about it, he would never let anyone know that he could do the henge, not even his teachers. Tonight was the night. Tonight he was going to find out why he was hated. Naruto was very nervous as he ate his late dinner, rice and sautéed vegetables. As a result of free access to most of the library, he had been able to research what sorts of food he should be eating for trying to be a ninja. While he knew he needed more protein, even more than that he needed the vitamins and minerals that fruits and vegetables provided. Thanks to the better prices, he was able to get some sauces and spices in order to make them taste better, if only slightly. Naruto knew that a lot of kids would love to be in his situation, being able to eat whatever he wanted, but he also knew that he would have to be responsible for making a proper diet for himself. He cleaned his dishes in the sink and locked up as he left his apartment. He had scouted the bars earlier in the week and had finally decided on a bar to try his plan on. He had decided to go to a more lower-end civilian district as to avoid any ninjas that may silence any loose lips and to try and go around midnight, so the drinkers would be drunk enough. He had chosen today because he had observed a caravan of merchants entering the village earlier this morning. As he neared the bar, he ducked into an alley to apply the henge. He tried to make the clothing as close to a lesser-end traveling merchant as possible. After a deep breath, he opened the door of the bar and walked in. The bar was roughly a third full and the mood seemed to be winding down. Naruto looked around for a man drinking alone. He spotted one sitting at the end of the bar, away from the bartender. He approached the man and sat next to him. "Man, what a city you got here," Naruto said to the man. "Huh," the drunken man replied. "What'd I mean? This is my first time seeing a ninja village. Usually I just travel to poor little towns who seem scared stiff of bandit attacks. Here, nobody even has the slightest fear." Naruto had tried. "Oh yeah, bandits piss themselves if they even dream of a ninja," the man said. "But I'm curious about something. There was some kid being bullied by some adults. I felt so bad for him, but my boss told me not to interfere." Naruto decided to try. "Huh, we don't hurt kids here. Are you sure it wasn't some ninja instructors training their students? Some of that stuff looks kinda bad sometimes." "No, it was on the side of the street, although the kid was wearing an ugly orange jumpsuit and—" "Oh, him the monster," the man murmured. "Yeah, don't worry about him." "Monster? What do you mean?" Naruto probed. "Don't worry about it, just try to avoid that kid from now on." "What do you want?" a voice interrupted them said. Naruto looked up and saw the bartender looking at him expecting a drink order. Naruto quickly remembered where he was and replied, "A bottle of rice country sake, please." The bartender walked over a bit and pulled a bottle and a cup from underneath the bar. 250 real, he grunted. Naruto internally winced as he handed over the money. Guess it would be back to instant ramen for a while. Naruto poured himself a drink as the bartender deposited the money. He then looked back at the man and decided to try a subtle bribe. "Care for a sip?" "Who turns down free booze?" the man stated. Naruto made sure to fill the man's cup as much as he could before raising his own and saying, "Kanpai." The two men drank deeply, or at least one of them did and the other pretended to. Naruto tried to make small talk for the next half hour, refilling their glasses with his wine every so often. Of course, most of it ended up in the other man's cup. After the man had become considerably more tipsy, Naruto decided to try again. "So by the way, why is that orange-dressed kid a monster?" "Huh, he just is, everybody knows that," he said, his words becoming increasingly slurred. "Remember, I'm new in town," Naruto said gently. "Come on, he seems harmless." "Ha, some people may believe that, but most of us know better. The Kyuubi is just faking it. Everyone knows it's just biding its time." The man started to rant, probably not realizing the word that had frozen Naruto suddenly. The Kyuubi. The nine-tailed beast that had attacked Konoha on the day of his birth. But how was he the Kyuubi? Naruto tried to get his head back together so he could get some more information. Fortunately, the small amount of sake in his system was keeping him from truly freaking out yet. "What are you talking about? That monster was huge. I heard it was bigger than that mountain with the faces on it that I saw. How could that kid be anything related to that thing?" Naruto tried. The yondaime, our hero, sealed it into the kid. The monster then took over the kid's body. The stupid sandaime tried to say that the kid is in control, but that's just stupid. The man blurted out. Sealed? How does that work? Naruto managed to say, all the while trying to comprehend what he had just heard. I don't know, one of those ninja things. The man droned out. At this point Naruto was reluctant to hear any more. He quietly excused himself and made for the door. As he walked back to his apartment he thought about his life and how what he heard could be the truth. Before he knew it he had returned to his home and felt clueless as to what to do. He had wanted answers since before he could remember, but he wasn't quite prepared for this. Time skip, 1 month later. For the last month, Naruto had been coming to terms with having the Kyuubi sealed within him. He had continued going to the library and training his ninja skills. By now he had learned the Kawarimi substitution jutsu and was making progress on the Bunshin. He had theorized that since the Kyuubi was sealed within him, that is why he had such abundant chakra, meaning that control would be a lifelong problem for him. He had researched chakra control techniques, but they were a problem of their own. Unfortunately, the control techniques he had access to were for academy-level students, which meant that they were designed for people with both low control and low chakra reserves. For someone like him with obscenely high reserves and an inverse level of control, they would not work. Naruto suspected that it was unlikely that Konoha had any control techniques anywhere for him, and that he would be forced to create his own for now. He knew that the purpose of chakra control training was to learn how to use specific amounts at a time so that he could gauge how much was needed for later jutsu. Unfortunately, he had yet to find a useful way of getting an initial starting point for his chakra. Right now his chakra had 2 settings, on and off. In between his training and studying, he had tried to remain on his best behavior around other people. After giving it some thought, he decided to try and show the people one-on-one that he was not the Kyuubi. To that end, he had tried a variety of ways to get people's attention in a positive way. For a while he had tried doing chores for the elderly, but they took to his free labor in a suspicious way. He thought that he had been getting through to one old lady that he was just trying to help, and she seemed to appreciate his work. But after doing yard work for her for 3 weeks, he asked if he could use her bathroom. The look on her face told him her answer. When he stopped doing free yard work for her, she seemed to spread rumors about him and make it seem like he owed her more work. As if the privilege of working for her was more than the work itself was worth. He tried helping other kids with their homework as well. Now that he was getting access to helpful information, his true intelligence was winning out. He quickly seemed to rise to the top of the class, or at least he would have if his instructors hadn't failed him for cheating. After all, according to them, it was the only way someone like him could pass. When he tried helping the other kids, they listened to their parent to avoid him and to the instructors that he was a cheat. In the end, it seemed that there was no generation in Konoha that was willing to give him a fair shake. At this point, Naruto was running out positive energy in which to keep himself going. It was at this point that he decided to pay a visit to the old man, to see what wisdom he could give. Naruto, how are you doing? I hear that your academy studies are suffer even more than normal, the sandaime started. Actually, I've been doing better. Probably one of the best in my class. The stupid instructors just say I'm cheating, but can't figure out how. Naruto explained calmly. Now Naruto, why would they do that? The sandaime replied in a placating manner. Maybe because they hate the Kyuubi, Naruto said, looking forward to seeing the old man's reaction. He wasn't disappointed. The sandaime, who had been multitasking between talking to Naruto, doing his endless paperwork, and drinking his tea. At that particular moment, he was doing the latter. The sputtered his tea all over his completed paperwork, ruining the last hour's work. The paperwork mattered little at this moment as the sandaime stared at Naruto with a shocked expression. How the sandaime started, unable to complete his sentence. Did you really expect that an entire village would be able to keep the secret for my entire life? Naruto said to the sandaime, with an evenness to his voice that even he couldn't believe he was able to produce. Naruto, the sandaime began. Tell me the truth of what happened. It's more than likely that the version I know is tainted with hatred and lacking detail, Naruto said with the same even voice. The sandaime sat and stared at Naruto. He knew this day would eventually come, but was unprepared for it to happen this soon. He thought of the lies he could tell, any way to make Naruto forget what he had already learned, but knew it was hopeless. Naruto was right. Only the truth could be told now. Anything else would only lead to misery. Ambu, secure the room. The Kyuubi is one of the 9 bijou, the tailed beasts of legend. They are beings composed of yuki, demon energy, the sandaime began. Energy, regardless of the form, cannot be created or destroyed. Due to this, the bijou are immortal. Any time throughout history when a bijou is defeated, they will eventually reform back into their previous forms. The only way to get any reprieve from them is to seal them. Some of the weaker bijou, meaning the ones with fewer tails, can be sealed into inanimate object for a time, but will eventually escape. The stronger ones, meaning the ones with more tails, would escape almost instantly. The only way to seal them for any real time is to seal them in humans, the Sandaime said with disdain in his voice. He kept his eyes on Naruto as he said this, but was only mildly surprised when Naruto neither said nothing nor reacted. He continued on, unfortunately, you can't just place a bijou in any human, its yuki is too corrosive for just anyone to handle. To handle a bijou being placed in a human body, the body needs to be young. The child must also have a strong chakra capacity, so that their bodies can adapt to the corrosive nature of the energy. However, that fact often creates problems of its own. What do you mean, problems? Naruto finally said. The Sandaime turned his head to a map along the wall and stared. The yuki of the bijou will always leak out of the seal, mingling with the container's own chakra. This makes the container inherently more powerful. More importantly, these beings sometimes are able to find ways to channel the bijou's yuki using their own bodies as a focus. The Sandaime looked at Naruto and saw him trying to come to terms with what he was saying. Naruto certainly isn't as stupid as the academy claims, he thought. But he's not quite there yet. The Sandaime decided to just come out and say it. Other countries have sealed bijous into children in hopes of creating human weapons to be used in war. These beings are called Jinchuriki, meaning the power of sacrifice. Naruto looked stricken as he said this. He looked to be fighting a terrible battle within his own mind as he contemplated what he had just said. Is that why I was? Naruto began. No, the Sandaime stated decisively. Konoha is the only village that has not done this, and it will remain that way as long as I can help it. The Kyuubi was sealed inside of you because there was no other way to stop its rampage. If it hadn't been sealed, Konoha would have been completely destroyed. The Sandaime continued. Then why do the people hate me so much? Naruto pleaded with him. Because they are stupid, ignorant, and naive. They don't know any better. Fuinjutsu is one of the most complicated ninja branches. Only the smartest and most advanced ninjas know more than the basics. They don't understand what happened to the Kyuubi other than it is now inside of you. No matter how much I tried to tell them, they couldn't understand. In the end, all I could do was wrap up all knowledge of this matter as an S-class secret. If anyone talks about this matter, they forfeit their lives. On that matter, who told you? The Sandaime asked, looking for an outlet to the emotions he was feeling. Some drunk. Naruto replied. I told him I was new in town, bought him drinks, and kept pestering him about the kid in orange. The Sandaime stared at him as worked out how Naruto had learned the truth. Wait, does this mean that you drank too? The Sandaime accused him. Well, it helped numb the truth a bit. Naruto replied with a slight grin. There's one more thing that I wanted to ask you about while you're in a truth-telling mood, however. Naruto said, his face once more becoming completely serious. Who are my parents? The Sandaime winced as he heard this and said, I told you before, they're dead. He watched as Naruto's face remained the same. Naruto stilled for a moment before replying, you know, back when I was living at the orphanage the others had a saying. If they tell you your parents are dead and give you their names, it means they're dead and you're an orphan. If they tell you your parents are dead and don't give you their names, it means they're alive and you're abandoned. Naruto said with a sad tone. Now that I know why I'm hated by the villagers, can you really keep saying that my nameless parents are really dead? The Sandaime was stricken by this. Is this what Naruto has believed ever since finding the truth? Does he believe that his parents abandoned him the moment the Kyuubi was placed inside of him? He didn't want to tell Naruto the truth this early, but it was the only way to stop this kind of thinking. It's the only way. Your mother's name was Uzumaki Kushina, the previous container of the Kyuubi. The Sandaime stated eventually. When she was pregnant with you, the seal weakened and the Kyuubi escaped, killing her. I'm the reason. Naruto began. No. Again, no, Naruto. We were prepared for the seal to be weakened and should have been able to deal with the strain on your mother, but something happened. I don't know all the details, but someone interfered and allowed the Kyuubi to break free. The only man who saw this person was the Yondaime Hokage, your father. My father, the Yondaime? Naruto, completely shocked at this revelation. Why would he? If why? Fortunately, the Sandaime got the gist of what he was saying. Your father trusted a terrible burden to you. The Kyuubi is the strongest bijou, and couldn't be sealed into just anyone. You are at least the third Uzumaki to hold the Kyuubi. Quite frankly, I don't know if many other lines would be strong enough to handle the strain of the strongest bijou. The one true regret I have is that we couldn't keep the secret of the bijou's placement in you. What do you mean? I thought you declared it an S-class secret. Naruto said, confused. Your mother and her great-aunt both held the Kyubi since almost the founding of Konoha. When the Kyubi was first captured by the Shodaime Hokage, he was able to seal it in secret. When I oversaw the transfer of the Kyubi to your mother, again we were able to do it in secret. Both of them lived their lives with only a handful of people knowing the truth, and each one of them understood what it truly meant. Then why couldn't you keep it a secret for me? Naruto said despairingly. In the aftermath of the Kyubi's escape and sealing, there were too many witnesses. Too many lives had been lost. The truth spread like wildfire, and everyone looking for someone to blame for the losses found a target. Me. Naruto finally understood. Yes. But if my father was the Hokage, why would I be living in the orphanage? Naruto asked. Surely my parents had at least one friend who could have taken me in. And if I was the Hokage's son, surely that would have kept me from being hated at least a little. Your father had many enemies and was greatly feared. He had developed a jutsu that enabled him to wipe out entire armies single-handedly. If IWA had found out that he had a son, they would have attacked us, and as you recall, after the Kyubi attack we were severely weakened. Even if they hadn't attacked en masse, assassins from every country would have gone after you relentlessly. The Sandaime watched as Naruto stared at him. All his questions seemed to be answered. I need some time to think about this, he finally said and left. It seems Uzumaki Naruto is destined to be hated by his own people, and Namake's Naruto is destined to have never existed, Naruto said to himself. It had been a few weeks since his conversation with the Sandaime, and Naruto had been going through his life with a strange detachment. He observed the hatred in the eyes of the people as they looked at his true self, as opposed to the way they ignored his alter egos. A few days ago he had come to the realization that he would likely never be accepted by these people as anything more than a scapegoat. He considered leaving, but knew the world outside probably wouldn't be any better, just more unfamiliar. Konoha, for all its faults, truly tried to rise above the other villages in terms of morals. However, with the time passed since the founding, the people had finally found their missing outlet for all their hatred and cruelty. The other villages had blamed bloodline ninja, different skin colors, even gender, to find reason to exercise their hatred. Konoha had made it almost 100 years until he came along. Apparently, the temptation to hate was just too irresistible. That was the problem, however. He would always be the object of their hatred. He was now an institution for them. After realizing this about the people, he started to pity them. He knew that he should hate them, but just couldn't bring himself to act just like them. He wanted to change them back to the way they once were, before they infected themselves with this hatred. If he wanted to change that, he needed to do something drastic. He couldn't change who he was inside, but he could change the less important outside. Naruto thought about his idea for a few more days, but as more time passed, he became more enamored with the idea. Changing his identity and appearance was a simple idea, but required serious actions and follow-through. First, he would need to come up with a way to change himself so that no one could recognize him. Then he would need a new identity and explanation as to where he had come from. Next, he would need to live within Konoha as a completely new person without anyone in a village full of the most observant people in the world knowing any better. Naruto thought about all the people that would miss him, or rather the 3 people that would probably miss him. The Ichirakas and the Sandaime. The Ichirakas had given him the only sense of family that he had ever known, and had fed him even when he couldn't afford it. Ayame had even been like a big sister to him. He was sad that they would no longer see him for who he was, but he knew that his relationship to them wouldn't be enough to last him the rest of his life. The Sandaime had been his greatest ally. He had given him a home when the orphanage had thrown him out. He gave him a stipend to live on and increased it twice after finding the price of living for a young Jinchuriki. However, now that he knew the truth, he had to admit a certain practicality about relying on this particular ally. The Sandaime was old, he had retired once already, and that was nearly 10 years ago. He wouldn't be around forever, and when, Kami forbid, he died, Naruto had no idea what his yet-to-be-chosen successor would do with him. Plus, as evidenced by his last conversation, there were clear limits to his only ally's power. Naruto's mind made up, he started to make real plans and researching ways of changing his identity. He learned that a name could be legally changed in one of the 11 major cities in Fire Country, including Konoha. Naruto knew that he wanted to do this as subtle as possible to prevent people from finding the truth, but he also considered the possibility that he might one day want to retake the name Naruto after he had won Konoha's respect. So he wanted to do it as legally as possible as well. Obviously, he couldn't change it in Konoha, so he hoped to travel to one of the other cities to find a way to change his name. Then he could reintegrate himself back into Konoha as an orphan looking to become an academy student. He decided there was no point in delaying and decided to make his goodbyes. He knew the Sandaime would be the hardest to convince, and the Ichirakas would be the most emotional. As Naruto walked into the Sandame's office, he was still conflicted as to how much of the plan to tell the old man. He knew he had to tell him he was leaving for a while, but was unsure of whether or not to tell him about his reintegration. He sighed for the umpteenth time as he decided to just play it by ear. "Hey," Naruto said apprehensively. "Could we talk in private again?" The Sandame looked at him for a moment, and dismissed his embuscade. "How are you dealing with the aftermath of our latest talk?" the Sandame questioned. "I must admit I've been thinking deeper than I can ever remember over the last few weeks," Naruto stated after some thought, before continuing. "But I've come to a few conclusions on where to go from here." The Sandame nodded and made a motion for him to continue. "I'm just going to say right now that some of this you're not going to like. But I've thought about this for a while now and this is the path that I want to take," Naruto said with a determined face. The Sandame frowned and looked at Naruto before again motioning him to continue. "I've decided to leave Konoha for a while," Naruto came out and said. As he imagined, the Sandame immediately had something to say about that. "Naruto, Konoha is your home. I know that the villagers are a bit difficult right now, but over time they will learn to respect you." "No, they won't," Naruto said with a straight face. "One thing that I have observed that you may have missed is that a lot of the villagers like hating me. Hating me makes their lives easier. It helps them to have a scapegoat to blame for all their problems and grief. As long as I'm here, they won't want me to be in any other role. They want me to be the stupid idiot on the outside and the monster on the inside." The Sandame frowned deeply at that as he tried to come up with a response to it, but Naruto again beat him to the punch. "I've tried to show them that they're wrong, but I can't change their minds about me. I've gone through a period of hating the villagers back, but in the end I know I'm only poisoning myself with that kind of hate. I've reached the point right now where I pity them for their hatred. This isn't just about me, it's about everyone. Me leaving helps everyone. It lets me be able to grow to my full potential away from their sabotaging hatred, and it lets them forget about the everyday reminder of the monster that ruined so many lives." Seeing the Hokage thinking, Naruto continued, "I won't be gone forever. I'm not planning on joining another ninja village or becoming a common fisherman or something. I just think both the people of Konoha and myself need a little break from each other, for both of our own good." The Sandame sighed and finally responded, "I can see you put some thought into this, but where would you go? How would you support yourself?" "I would like an advance on my stipend, maybe enough for a year? As soon as I'm away from Konoha, I imagine things will be generally cheaper, at least as far as I'm concerned," Naruto said, deciding not to tell him about his henge. "After that, I'm sure I can learn to fend for myself in the wild or at least find some part-time jobs as I travel." "It's dangerous out there, Naruto," the Sandame intervened. "There are hundreds of bandit groups wandering around Fire Country alone. I do have some ninja training, obviously not enough to fight an entire group of bandits, but I know enough to be able to get away from them easily enough. Plus I can tell you that I'm not going to go looking for trouble. I'll keep my head down, and if I do leave the country, I will only travel to places without ninja villages. I was thinking maybe Hot Springs Country or Tea Country." The Sandame nodded as he knew both of those countries to be bordering Fire Country and relatively peaceful. "Alright, I can see you've thought about this and I realize that you may have a point as to how the village has become a bit too used to hating you. Very well, if you promise to return within 4 years, I will let you leave and give you your advance." "Thanks, I know that was hard for you to say," Naruto said as he made to leave. "And Naruto," the Hokage added. Naruto turned and looked at him. "I'm very proud of the way you feel about the village. If the villagers had your maturity about the situation, none of this would be necessary." The Hokage said this as he looked proudly at Naruto. The Ichirakas were easier but much more emotional. They were both sad to see him leave, but upon finding out he knew the reason for his treatment within the village, they understood. Naruto picked up his money and birth certificate at the end of the week and said his goodbyes to the 3 people that would miss him as he left Konoha for the first time. Destination number 1, Fire Country Capital, to change his identity. The next day, Naruto decided to take a rather straight road to the Fire Country Capital, deciding on using one of the main road at an easy pace, relying on being well rested to be able to escape from any dangers along the road. Although, he was already reconsidering this plan, as he had passed many groups of people traveling to and from Konoha, who had expressed interest as to why a child was traveling alone. Naruto had henged for each group after the first group had recognized him. Fortunately, that run-in was close enough to Konoha that it wasn't completely unusual to see him there. He knew that he could probably make it to the capital much faster if he tried tree hopping, a popular ninja way of travel. However, he was still very inexperienced and knew that if he had a serious accident, he would be completely at the mercy of the wild. So he kept to the main road. As he traveled, he rethought his plan on how changing his identity would go. He knew that changing your name was a fairly straightforward process, but suspected he would have to cut some corners in doing so. He hoped that he could use the henge to convince the bureaucrats to do a simple change, but suspected he might have to use some of his money for a bribe. He also thought about what name he wanted to be known by for the next decade. He knew that he couldn't choose a name that was too ostentatious, but he would like to have one that he could be comfortable with. In the end, he decided his first name would be Tsukumo, after a strong and loyal Konoha ninja. His family name would be Hayashi, just a common name that sounded good with Tsukumo. Tsukumo Hayashi. After a week of travel, Naruto arrived in the Fire Country capital. The first thing he observed, this was one huge city. Indeed, the capital was the biggest city in Fire Country. Naruto decided to first find a cheap, but safe place for him to stay for the next few days while he figured out how to change his name. He scouted the inns and motels before finding the eighth one acceptable. 250 ryo a day for however long he stayed. It was a bit run down, but in a safe neighborhood. He would keep his important items on his person, so really he just needed a safe place to sleep. He found a few cans in the trash, and hooked them up to the window and door with a few pieces of string in order to form a crude security alarm to wake him up for trouble. Satisfied with the work he had done, he decided to use the rest of the day to at least find and scout out the government buildings that would be able to provide the services he needed. It took some doing, as the city was completely new to him, but he thought he found the government building where non-criminal legal matters were handled. Being that it was evening by now, he decided to spend the next few hours just wandering around the city and seeing the sights. The next morning, Naruto walked into the government building under a henge. He had chosen to look like an ordinary 25-year-old man. He walked up to the counter and asked the receptionist, "Hello, I'd like to inquire what is involved in legally changing a name." The receptionist looked at him with a bored expression and handed him a series of documents from a drawer inside the desk. Complete forms 21 to 5.1 through 21 to 5.3, provide proof of current identity, pay the 800 ryo fee, and wait 5 business days for new identity paperwork, she said with a bored tone. Naruto looked at her with an expecting look. He had been expecting questions regarding why he wanted to change his name, proof that he wasn't a criminal on the run, or other things like that. He continued, "Is there anything?" The receptionist looked at him with an annoyed expression and repeated, "Complete forms 21 to 5.1 through 21 to 5.3, provide proof of current identity, pay the 800 ryo fee, and wait 5 business days for new identity paperwork." Sure, I'll fill these out and get them back to you," Naruto said, taking the paperwork and going over to a chair to fill out the form. 20 minutes later he was out the door. Well, that was easier than I imagined it would ever be, he thought. Indeed, he had come up with half a dozen plans ranging from convincing her that he was running from an abusive home, to he was a father looking to change his adopted son's name. He wasn't expecting routine bureaucratic paperwork. Naruto spent the next week in the travel section of the library looking into different places in Fire Country he might consider visiting before returning to Konoha. He saw that most of the places could wait until he was an adult, but one place he did want to try and visit was Fire Temple. As he left the library to pick up his new identity, he pondered if there would be any of the hidden surprises that he had originally expected. But as he again walked out of the government building, he was gladdened and a bit disappointed to find a reissued birth certificate for Tsukumo Hayashi. Oh well, next stop, Fire Temple. As he climbed the thousands of steps to get to the top of the mountain, where Fire Temple rested, he considered what he would say when he got there. He knew that the monks that lived here were close to ninjas in the way they trained and would probably not be fooled with a simple henge. He had tentatively decided to go with the truth for the most part, and hoped that they could understand his plan. Naruto finally reached the top and saw the gates guarded by 2 strong-looking monks. As he approached them, the one on the left motioned him to halt and said, "Young child, why have you come here?" Naruto thought things over once more and replied, "I'm here to ask the monks for help." Both the monks looked at him suspiciously and were about to ask for more detail when the gate opened from behind them. An old monk appeared, followed by a collection of other monks. The guards immediately bowed and greeted the old man. "Master Mateto." The elder looked at the 2 guards before looking at Naruto and narrowed his eyes. "I have sensed a great evil approaching, but all I see is a boy. Who are you?" The guards and the monks behind him readied their weapons as Naruto gulped and responded. "I am Uzumaki Naruto from the village of Konoha, and I have come to ask for your help." "An Uzumaki?" the elder replied. "I doubt this very much. The Uzumakis were once a great clan known for fuinjutsu, longevity, and most notably, red hair. Who are you really, and why do I sense great evil within you?" The strong monks guarding the gate grew even more agitated at his words. Naruto panicked a bit as he decided to go with the full truth, hoping the monks would act more like, well, monks. I'm the Kyubi Jinchuriki. As for being an Uzumaki, well, that's what the Sandaime calls me anyway. The elder widened his eyes at the mention of the word Jinchuriki before nodding his head and motioned his men to stand down. Very well, you may enter and state your plea. With this he turned and walked back to the temple within the gates. Naruto stood shocked for a few moments before taking a deep breath and following. He walked past the still on-guard monks, and tried to look more confident than he was. As he followed the elder monk, he observed his surroundings with a bit of awe. He thought internally that if he wasn't so scared, he probably would be even more impressed with the architecture and ambience. Naruto followed the elder to one of the smaller buildings and was led to a room that looked like a monk's version of a lounge. It had pillows to kneel on, with a small table to drink tea off of. The elder motioned him to sit as he took a seat himself. Tea was served by a boy only a few years older than himself. The elder took a sip of the tea before saying, I will now hear what you have to request. Naruto, still rattled by the treatment so far, tried to summon his courage to forge ahead. I mean. The monk looked at him before sighing and said more calmly, take a moment to collect yourself. Drink your tea. Naruto, grateful for the slightest bit of compassion, did just that. After a minute of calming down, he tried again. I would like your help to try and change Konoha and my own situation for the better. With that out of the way, Naruto explained further. As I'm sure you're aware, people like me aren't exactly well liked by the common populace. I grew up with a lot of hatred and bias towards me because of the Kyubi. Due to that, the people of Konoha and I are locked in an endless cycle. They hate me, I try to get them to not hate me, they hate me, and so forth. The monk nodded before responding. Well, I can understand now why I felt such evil from you, and while I am sorry for the way you were treated, I don't see what I can do for you. Naruto smiled before continuing. I convinced the Hokage to allow me to leave Konoha for a few years to give both the villagers and myself a break from each other. He said that as long as I return before I'm due to become a ninja, I can leave Konoha. I, however, had the idea to change my identity and appearance and return to Konoha immediately to re-enroll back into the academy. I would work hard, earn their respect, and when I had earned it, reveal myself and rid them of their hatred. The elder looked at him with a dubious look before responding. Why not just remain as you are and earn their respect that way? I've already tried that, Naruto commented. Nobody will even give me a ghost of a chance. The academy instructors hated me so much they were practically teaching me to block punches with my face. How could I earn their respect if they are actively sabotaging me? Everyone thinks I'm a complete idiot because they're the ones grading me, and no matter how well I do, I keep getting Fs. The monk finally showed some sympathy with the frown on his face. Again, I don't see how I can help you. This is a training area for monks, not ninja. I just wanted to know if there was a way to receive a recommendation from the Fire Temple to enter the academy. I already changed my name in Fire Capital and have new documents. If I had a recommendation from the temple, the academy would be more likely to accept me with little fuss. The elder monk finally nodded and replied, I could give you a recommendation, but not for free. You will stay for the next month and train here. Show me your determination, drive, and character, and you will earn a recommendation from the Fire Temple. Naruto's face went from hopeful to saddened and eventually to determined when he heard what the elder had said. He immediately responded, of course, I won't let you down. This is the path I decided, and I won't back down until you can see my will of fire. The monk nodded before asking one of his attendants to prepare a bed for Naruto. 1 week later. Naruto awoke early in the morning. One bad thing about training with these monks is the hours they kept. They awoke before the sun rose and accepted no sleeping in. Naruto yawned before getting dressed and preparing for the day. He knew he had to prove that he was worthy of a recommendation. Naruto spent the next few hours doing his assigned chores of gathering water from the river down in the valley, carrying it up the stairs with some of the other monks, and cleaning the floor of the dojo. After that, it was time for his chakra control training, one area that he had been failing in rather tragically. As he walked to the instructor's chambers, he was stopped by one of the more experienced monks, Jinchuriki. Naruto, please wait, I know that you are having a bit of difficulty with the chakra control training and was wondering if I might be able to assist. Naruto looked at him and replied, any help you can give would be appreciated, but I think the problem is that I need different exercises to start with and I have no clue as to what they should be. Jinchuriki smiled, I believe I have found one that may suit you. Tell the instructor where you are going and meet me down by the river in clothes you can swim in. Thank you, Jinchuriki-sensei, I'll be there in a few minutes. Naruto practically shouted as he ran to tell the instructor where he was going. Naruto ran down the steps of the mountain and ran to the river looking for Jinchuriki. He spotted him a short distance away and ran to him. I'm here, sensei, what do you have in mind? Chirika smiled at him and said, "This is a common skill among ninja that I think you will be able to perform already. It is called water walking. The ability to walk on the surface of the water by expelling chakra from the bottom of your feet." Walking on water? That's possible? Naruto thought excitedly. I'm going to learn that. Yes, Naruto, in fact, I believe you will get the skill on the first try. Observe. With that, Chirika made the ram's seal and walked out onto the river. Wow, Naruto said. Try it, Naruto, channel chakra from your feet and walk out here. Naruto made the ram's seal, concentrated his willpower and produced an impressive amount of visual chakra, focused it on his feet and walked out. To his immense surprise, he stayed on the surface instead of falling in. He had expected that it would take at least a few tries before he got it, like learning the jutsus before. Wow, that was easier than I thought it would be, Naruto said excitedly. Chirika grinned before continuing, I'm not surprised actually. The water walking technique only requires enough chakra to stay afloat, but doesn't have an upper limit as to how much you can use. Right now, you are probably using more than 500 times the amount of chakra required to keep you afloat. Okay, well, I guess I can see how others might use this to train their chakra, but how is it an exercise for me? Naruto asked. Because we are going to alter the exercise like so. With that said, Chirika began to sink slowly into the water until his knees were underwater. At that moment, he slowly began to rise again. What I'm doing is controlling the amount of chakra I'm releasing to the point where I can barely support myself. I'm allowing myself to sink and rise based on the amount I release. If you can learn to do this exercise, it would be a good first step in learning to use your chakra. Naruto grinned widely as he tried to do it himself, only to succeed in turning off his chakra completely and dropping in. He released his chakra once more only to shoot out of the water and fly into the air, before dropping back into the river. Keep trying, Naruto, remember, use less chakra, not zero chakra. The eventual point is to be able to do this exercise slowly. Chirika taught. I know, it's just I've never done anything like this before. But don't worry, I won't give up. I will master this. Naruto responded determined. Very good, keep trying. If you need to, you can try to use weights to increase the resistance. That should make it at least a little easier at first. Chirika said helpfully. 2 weeks later. Naruto had finally fallen into a routine among the monks. He would awaken and do his chores, then train his chakra down by the river, eat lunch, train in taijutsu with the monks, meditate, eat dinner, talk with the monks, and sleep. Today, however, there would be a slight deviation. Today he would be speaking with the head monk, Mateto. As Naruto walked toward his meditation room, he wondered what the elder monk wanted to speak with him about. As far as he knew, he still had another week left of training before the elder made his determination. Naruto knocked on the door to announce his arrival and enter when he heard the call to come in. He walked into the room and saw the elder peacefully meditating in the center of the room. Naruto walked over him and knelt opposite of the elder. He considered speaking, but decided to just remain silent and wait for the elder to speak. A few minutes later, Mateto opened his eyes and spoke. For nearing 1 month you have been here. Before you leave, I would like to hear more of your plan for the future. I would also like to hear what you have thought of the progress you have made in the last 3 weeks. Thank you, Master. I feel like I have made a lot of progress here in the last few weeks. 2 of the skill that I needed the most help with were taijutsu and chakra control. Taijutsu due to the fact that the academy instructors have never helped me properly in this area. With chakra control, I feel like I'm starting to have at least the beginnings of control. Thanks to the exercise Chirika-sensei came up with, I finally have a way to at least start training. I have to carry almost as much weight as I can carry just to control the amount of chakra enough for me to sink or rise slowly, but it's better than nothing. I always knew that chakra control was something I will be working on my entire life, but at least now I have a starting place. Naruto summarized his training so far. Master Mateto nodded as he said, I am glad that you understand that, and are willing to continue working on your chakra control. I am satisfied that if you keep up this level of training that you will be a fine ninja one day. Now tell me about your future plans for when you return to Konoha. Naruto nodded before continuing. Well, assuming you give your recommendation, I plan to reinsert myself into the Konoha Academy. I will disguise myself in different clothing, wear a face mask, and dye my hair in order to hide myself. I have already changed my name in Fire Capital before coming here, so I already have the documentation. I plan to try and get into the year ahead of where I was, in order to avoid many of the people that may recognize me. Hopefully, the training I received here will be enough to give me a leg up in that area. Master Mateto frowned for a moment. I do not usually endorse deceit, but in your case I can see how it is necessary. What are your plans for when you become a ninja? Naruto smirked slightly before responding. I have given this much thought, and as much as I dream of grabbing dangerous and glorious assignments to spread my legend, I understand that everyone must start at the bottom and work their way up. I will research it more, but for now I plan to stay out of the public eye and gather experience and training in a slow and steady manner. I will continue to work hard in training, gain experience from missions, and earn the respect of my comrades." The elder monk smirked himself before replying, "Sneaky, but so very much like a ninja." Naruto nodded to this comment. "The only thing that I am conflicted about is the Hokage. I gave him the impression that I would be gone for years before returning, but at this rate I will be back in less than 2 months. I know that things would be much easier if I told him that I was in Konoha, but I also want to try and do this completely on my own. I know that there will come a day where I can't rely on him, and I want to make sure that whatever I achieve in the end is from my hard work, not his political capital. I can tell the Sandaime who I am either when I get to Konoha, when I graduate, when I reach Chunin, when I reach Jonin, or not at all." The monk thought about the matter before replying. "What exactly are your motivations for telling him, or not telling him? What is it that you hope either of you will do with the information?" "The most important reason I want to tell him who I am is so he knows that I am safe, so that he doesn't have to worry about me. The world is a dangerous place. I hate the idea of him constantly fearing whether I'm safe or that I need his help," Naruto confessed. Potato smiled before nodding to continue. "But I feel like I want to do this on my own, my way. If he knew, I feel like he would be watching over me. I feel like he has his own plans for my future that I wouldn't even know about until they were happening. I had to find out about the Kyuubi for myself. If I hadn't, I don't know if he would have ever told me," Naruto blurted out at the end. "It sounds like you care about his man more than any other, but are conflicted due to the position of leadership he finds himself in," Potato eventually said. "Yes, I feel like I have a solid plan, but I don't know how he should fit into it," Naruto confirmed. "In that case, I would advise you to hold off on telling him, at least at first. Write letters to him telling him that you are doing well and continuing your studies. Take things one step at a time. If you feel like you are ready to tell him, do so, and tell him you wish to earn the respect of Konoha your own way," the head monk advised. Naruto thought for a moment before nodding. "Thank you, master, that is what I will do." "Well, with that, there is only one more thing that I need," the elder monk said. Naruto looked confused. "Your new name. I can hardly write a recommendation for Naruto Uzumaki," Potato said with a laugh. Naruto smiled and simply said, "Tsukumo Hayashi." 1 week later. Naruto walked down the steps of the temple for the last time for a while. He intended to come back someday, but for now, he had carried enough water up and down these steps to last the rest of the year. He patted his coat pocket for the 3rd time in the last hour, comforted by the letter of recommendation from Potato. With this, he should be able to get into the village and the academy without much fuss. He only had one more stop to make before returning to Konoha. He would be returning to the capital to buy new clothing and to change his hairstyle and color. After that was done, he would start his new life as Tsukumo Hayashi. As Naruto approached the gates of Konoha, he felt a sense of wonder that he had never felt before. Instead of a sense of familiarity, Konoha now presented new opportunities. He walked to the short line of people waited to get into the village and waited for his turn. Naruto checked himself one last time to make sure everything was in place. His new boots, his green cargo pants, his mesh undershirt, his many-pocketed jacket, and his new face mask were all in place. His hair had been shaved to only an inch long and was a light brown color. He had a manual shaver in his backpack along with a few containers of hair dye. He was pulled out of his mental inventory by the gate guard who was beckoning him to approach. The Chunin gate guard looked at him with suspicion before asking him, "Name and reason for entering Konoha?" Naruto replied, "Tsukumo Hayashi. I've come to apply to join the ninja academy." "You want to be a ninja, huh?" the gate guard said. "Do you have any experience?" "I trained at the fire temple for a while, and the head monk wrote me a letter of recommendation," Naruto defended. "Huh, well that should be enough to at least get you a chance. All right, stand over in that corner for a while. I'll summon a genin to escort you to the administrative building." The Chunin pointed to a section of the wall near one of the watchtowers. Naruto stood patiently in the corner, giving the guard no reason to feel anxious about him. After half an hour, a teenage boy arrived to escort him to the administrative building. The teenager grunted for him to follow, and remained silent as he led him through the village. After arriving at the administrative building, Naruto went through the security checkpoint after a pair of guards searched his person and belongings. He was then escorted to the 3rd floor where the genin spoke to the paper pusher before leaving. The bureaucrat looked at Naruto for a moment before pulling out the necessary paperwork to begin the process of accepting a new villager to Konoha. I'm told that you wanted to join the Konoha Ninja Academy to become a Konoha ninja. You should know that we receive many people that say they wish training from us and we have a low acceptance rate for non-villagers. Also, you should know that should you succeed in being placed in the academy, you will be automatically entered into a contract upon completion. Before we begin the process, do you have anything at? Naruto looked at her before nodding. I have a letter of recommendation, should I give that to you now? She looked at Naruto for a second before replying, we will deal with that later, but for future reference, who is the recommendation from? Master Mutato of the Fire Temple. Naruto stated proudly. She blinked, looking surprised at that remark. Well, that is impressive. Anyway, shall we begin? Name and age? Tsukumo Hayashi. 8 years old. Naruto replied. Do you have parental consent to apply for ninja training? I'm an orphan, ma'am. Here is my birth certificate. He handed his paperwork over to the woman. I see, do you have the means to support yourself while training at the academy? We do not offer stipends to non-Konoha natives. The woman probed. I should have enough money if I live frugally. If not, are there any part-time jobs available for people of my age? Naruto asked. You would need to take that up with the employers themselves. Very well, please describe your current skill level. Naruto smiled, thankful to be moving on. I trained in Taijutsu at the Fire Temple, I have studied Konoha history from available texts, and I have researched ninja life from whatever books I have been able to get. I also know the Henjin Kawarimi Jutsus. The woman's eyes widened at that last remark. I see, could you please Henjin to the Hokage then? Naruto was about to make the sign when he paused for a minute, then came to a realization before replying, I would, but I'm not sure what the Hokage looks like. Could I Henjin to you instead? The woman paused before nodding. Go ahead. Naruto studied the woman before concentrating and muttering Henge. He felt himself change to look like the woman. The paper pusher nodded before making a note on her paper. Good, that would actually place you ahead of where your age group is supposed to be. The Konoha Academy is a 5-year program. Children usually begin around age 7 or 8 and complete around age 12 or 13. With your skill level, I will recommend putting you in year 2. The academy instructors can decide whether to move you up or down based on a closer evaluation of your academic level. She filled out more of the paperwork before handing him 2 sets papers. Here are your temporary citizenship papers and admission paperwork for the academy. Please present yourself to the academy tomorrow morning and they will take you from there. Please carry your temporary citizenship papers everywhere and return here in 1 month to pick up more permanent papers. I will inform the academy to tell you when they are ready. Do you have any questions? Naruto nodded. Could you direct me to an area where I could rent a low-income apartment? The woman paused before answering. How inexpensive are you looking for? Naruto, who had lived in the cheapest area prior to this, knew exactly where to search anyway, but decided to get directions there anyway to avoid suspicion. I'll start with the cheapest area. If I need more than that, I'll deal with it later. The woman nodded before giving him directions to where he had lived ever since leaving the orphanage. It was a sunny afternoon by the time Naruto got out of his meeting. As he walked down the street toward his old neighborhood, he stopped by a dango stand to get a few sticks for lunch. He ate as he walked casually down the street thinking, Stage 3 complete. Indeed, he had changed his name, received a recommendation, and now been accepted into Konoha and the academy. Now it was time for the most dangerous step, re-enrolling in the academy. If there was a place that he was likely to be discovered, it was in the place with ninja instructors that could recognize him. He hoped the fact that he had gotten into the year above would help him avoid his previous instructors. As he entered into his old neighborhood, he decided to start looking for an apartment. He knew that his former apartment would probably be the cheapest, if only due to the fact that it had a monster living within. But that was only if the building manager knew that was the case. Naruto decided to go there first, just to see how much the landlord would try to gouge him. Naruto would then look at a couple other places, hear the rumor of the monster living there, and confront the bastard, if only to make sure he got a fair price on the rent. As he entered the lobby of the building, he saw his landlord, the fat tub of lard, sitting at his desk stuffing his face. Naruto wiped the look of disgust from his face before deciding to get it over with. Hey, I'm looking for a 1-bedroom apartment, how much are the ones here? The landlord, Fukoshi, stared at him before looking at him with a greedy expression. We have some of the best 1-bedrooms available for the low price of 5,000 ryo a month. Despite the fact that it was a lower price than his old apartment, Naruto knew it was still highway robbery for this part of town. Putting that aside for now, he replied, "Can I take a look at one of your apartments?" Fukoshi led him to the third floor and showed him the apartment. It was an exact copy of his apartment, except the facets here seemed to have hot water. "Thanks, I'm going to look at a few others in the area, but I'll return by the end of day if I want the apartment," Naruto concluded. Fukoshi frowned heavily before grudgingly accepting. Naruto left his old building to look at a few others before returning to confront him. He turned down the street and headed to an apartment building bordering Konoha's small red light district. As he was about to enter the building, he noticed a man fixing one of the ground windows that had recently been broken. Naruto decided to approach him first. "Excuse me? Do you work here?" The man turned and grunted, "Yeah, what do you want, kid? Here to break some more windows?" Naruto shook his head before replying, "No, I'm actually new in town. Here to try and join the academy. Do you know if the building has any available units and what price they are?" The man's face appeared suspicious for a moment before shrugging. "Yeah, we got a few. Are you looking for one bedroom or two?" "One is fine, or a studio if you have it." "One bedrooms around here are 3,800 ryo a month. We have a single studio in the basement for 2,500 ryo a month." Naruto thought about it. Those prices were a lot better than the prices that the Sandaime was paying for his one-bedroom apartment. "Could I take a peek at the studio? I'll look around a little more, but I should be able to give you an answer before end of day today or tomorrow." "Sure, follow me." The man led him down to the basement and showed him the room. It was a single room with a small bathroom, sink, counter, and refrigerator taking up almost half the space. There was only enough room for a small bed and maybe a table. "Thanks," Naruto said after testing the sink. "Where can I find you? I decide I want it." "If I'm not out fixing the window, you can knock on apartment 201 to find me," the man eventually said, as if reluctant to give up his apartment address. Naruto looked at a couple others, both of whom had one-bedroom apartments for around the same price. He decided to confront his old manager with what he had found out from the other landlords around town. He staked out his old apartment building for a few minutes before he observed Fukoshi taking out the trash from his meals. He timed it so that the manager would see him as he was walking back to the entrance. As he timed, the landlord spotted him and said, "Hey, have you made up your mind yet?" Naruto put a look of disgust onto his face. "Ha, nice try. Not only are your prices the worst in the area, you neglected to mention the monster living on your top floor. If I wanted to be eaten in the middle of the night, I would have gone and joined IWA and lived with those savages." Naruto play-acted, relying on the well-known hatred of both the Kyuubi and of the previous war with IWA. "What? Who told you?" Fukoshi yelled. "I told the other landlords where I was looking, and every single one of them practically tried to save my life by telling me." Naruto continued on. "Okay, just keep it down. I'll lower the rent down to 3,000 ryo a month if you live here, and I promise it'll never bother you." Fukoshi tried haggling. One would wonder why Fukoshi would be trying to haggle with a kid, but Naruto knew why. The truth was that due to the combined reputation of Naruto and Fukoshi, his apartment building was hemorrhaging money. The Sandaime wouldn't let him tear it down, and no one wanted to buy it. Over half of the building was empty, probably more. Naruto pretended to look thoughtful at his offer but shook his head. He knew he could go lower. "That's better, but another guy offered me a studio for 2,500. Not much space, but at least I won't have to worry about waking up the next day." As Fukoshi sweated, Naruto internally cheered. He loved seeing his fat landlord be put into place. Okay, 2,000 a month. Naruto considered that offer. It was a good deal, and the apartment would be bigger than the studio he had seen. He made a face like he was considering the offer before nodding. "Fine, 2,000 ryo a month, but you have to guarantee that price will stay the same for at least 3 years and that the monster won't attack me." "Deal," the fat man said quickly, happy to have at least some more income from his practically empty building. Naruto grinned as they walked inside to sign the paperwork. It was not only a good deal, but when the monster was discovered missing, he would be locked in at a good price until he had graduated from the academy. Naruto walked up the steps of the academy early the next morning. He had spent a rather uncomfortable night sleeping on the floor of his new apartment, as he had yet to get a bed. He took a deep breath before heading into the academy and pretending to look for the head office. He spotted the correct area before going inside the office and pulling out the paperwork he was given the previous day. He approached the empty desk at the front and took a peek inside of the interior window to see an empty head's office. Naruto took a seat in one of the chairs in the front and decided to just wait patiently for someone to arrive. Less than 10 minutes later, the head of the academy walked in with a coffee in hand. He looked around and saw Naruto sitting in the chairs. A little early to be getting in trouble, isn't it? Who are you and why are you here? Naruto stood up quickly before responding, Sir, I'm here to join the Ninja Academy. I was told to report here this morning. He handed over his paperwork to the man. A little late in the semester to be accepting new students. Let's see. You know 2 of the academy jutsus already. Good taijutsu training from the fire temple, very promising, even a recommendation from its head. Well, Hayashi-san, it looks like you're off to a fine start already. Why don't you give me a few minutes to fill out some paperwork, and after that, I'll take you to your classroom. Naruto smiled. Thank you, sir. Naruto was walking behind the headmaster as he walked to his classroom. Soon they arrived at a classroom filled with students only slightly older than himself. As the instructor noticed the headmaster, he walked over to receive the paperwork for his new student. The headmaster introduced his new instructor as Hiro Kanazawa-sensei, before leaving. Very well, I am your teacher, Hiro Kanazawa. You may call me Hiro-sensei. The instructor introduced himself. The instructor then gestured to the front of the classroom and said, Why don't you introduce yourself to the class and tell them a bit about yourself? Class, please welcome our new student. Naruto stepped in front of the class to give his first introduction to his fellow students. Hello, my name is Tsukumo Hayashi. I have transferred here in hopes of becoming a ninja. Before I was in Konoha, I was studying at the Fire Temple. I look forward to working with you. He concluded his introduction with a bow. Very good, Tsukumo-san. Please take the empty seat in the second row. Hiro-sensei pointed to an empty spot between what looked like a Hyuga and a civilian child. Naruto took his seat as the instructor began his history lesson. As expected, a history lesson first thing in the morning quickly put many of the students to sleep. As the history lesson wound down, they quickly found themselves outdoors for morning workouts. Today their class was doing an obstacle course a short distance from the academy. The obstacle course included bars to jump or climb over, roped areas to crawl under, ropes to climb, and many others. Naruto had enjoyed using this course last year, as it was one of the few training exercises he could do alone, so he knew it would be a piece of cake today. Indeed, when it was his group's turn to go, he quickly finished the course not only before the others in his group, but he managed to finish at the same time as the group that left 2 minutes before his group left. His action got him high praise from Hiro-sensei and a scowled look from the group that he lapped. After the lunch break, in which Naruto rested alone under a tree, they returned to the classroom to practice their hand seals. Naruto, confused by this, asked the instructor what jutsus he was expected to know at this point. His response was, Fortunately for you, the academy doesn't start learning actual ninjutsu until the 3rd year. So you have time to catch up to the other students. Naruto looked quizzically at the teacher before realizing he hadn't seen his records yet. Naruto decided to forego the explanation and just show that he could use some jutsus already. He put his hand together in the ram seal as the Hiro-sensei nodded and said, Very good, Tsukumo-san. Naruto then went the next step further and said henge before transforming into a perfect copy of Hiro-sensei. Oh, Tsukumo-san, I didn't realize that you knew jutsus already. I thought you were concerned about being left behind. Can you do the other 2 academy jutsus as well? Naruto replied, I can do the kawarimi, but I don't yet have the chakra control to do the bunshin yet. Hiro-sensei nodded before continuing, Well, since you know what chakra control is, may I assume you are practicing it on your own? I have a couple exercises that I'm practicing in my spare time. I haven't been working on them since I left the temple because of my move here, but I hope to get back to them soon. Hiro thought to himself for a moment. If this child had already mastered 2 of the 3 academy jutsus and was learning the last, he was already more advanced than the year above. For now, just follow along with the lesson. The end of the year is approaching soon, and we can discuss whether this is the correct class for you. Indeed, the 3rd year was primarily spent learning the first jutsu, usually henge. He would need to discuss this with the academy head. Naruto sat in his new apartment as he made a list of the things he needed to do. The first was obviously to get some new furnishings for his new apartment. He needed a bed, a chair, and a table. If he could just get those, he would probably be fine for a while. Concerning his schooling, he decided to focus on studying the academy curriculum in the evenings, practice his chakra control in the afternoons after school, and study like crazy for the next couple months until the summer break. Hopefully, if his schoolwork could match his ninjutsu, he would be able to convince the academy instructors to skip the 3rd year. Naruto planned to get a part-time job during the summer, so that he could save as much of his stipend money as he could for later. He was unsure of what he could do or how well it would pay, but just something to do other than training and reading would be nice. With that, he decided to start browsing the second-hand stores in the area for furniture. 1 month later, Naruto was sitting in the head of the academy's office with Hiro-sensei, discussing the possibility of skipping the next year. Naruto and his sensei were for skipping, but the head was not convinced quite yet. His arguments so far had centered around the dislike of sending children out into the world too soon and letting them have a proper childhoods. Naruto took over for his instructor to argue the pro point of view. Headmaster, if you recall, I am an orphan who just moved here, so I don't have any friends or family. Also, while I have enough money to last a few years, the sooner I start working, the better. The headmaster nodded his head as he considered those points. This was an orphan, and he was probably living very cheaply right now. Very well, I will allow you to enter the 4th year at the beginning of the autumn semester, he finally decided. Hayashi-san, if I may ask, how do you plan to spend the summer break? Naruto considered the headmaster's question before answering truthfully. I have 3 goals or aims that I wish to follow. The first is to continue my studies at the library to make sure I'm entering the 4th year with all I need to know. Next, I plan to continue working on my chakra control. The monks gave some exercises to work on that I want to try and master. Finally, I want to see if I can find a part-time job for the summer. Like I said before, I have enough in reserve to last for a few years if I live frugally. But I know that early genin life won't pay very much either, so I want to keep most of my reserves as long as possible. Speaking of which, do you have any ideas as to where I could look for a part-time summer job? The 2 academy employees looked at each other, considering his question. Hiro-sensei eventually came up with an answer. Actually, now that I think about it, since plant growth is accelerated during the summer, Konoha will often hire extra part-time groundskeepers to maintain the training grounds and public areas. I could point you to their office. It's hard work, but it should keep you busy during the summer. Naruto nodded. It sounded like an acceptable idea. Thank you, sensei, I'd like that. 3 months later. Naruto had a busy, but useful, summer. Hiro-sensei had indeed come through and hooked him up with a job as a groundskeeper. He spent 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, looking after the public areas of Konoha. He would usually mow the grass, pick up sticks or leaves, or fight a new invasive species of plant called buckthorn that was quickly spreading across fire country. It was hard work, but it paid pretty well considering his age. He mostly worked alone, each day assigned a section by the permanent staff. Aside from working, he had also continued the training goals he had for the summer. He had finally begun to make progress on the water sinking exercise. He could now sink and rise through the water without holding on to any weights. It still required constant willpower and control to use only the exact amount necessary, but it was a huge step in the right direction. Right now, he was sitting in what would be his classroom for the next year, surrounded by his classmates, all of whom were at least a year older than him. The children were torn between greeting their friends from after the break and wondering why a younger kid was here. They were interrupted by the instructor for this year, as he greeted his new class. Welcome, students. I hope you all had a good break. You may call me Kai-sensei. You will be graduating at the end of your next year, so this is the year we will be focusing on learning taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu. I warn you, this is the year where most of the dropouts occur. We will be moving fast and I expect each one of you to do your best and keep up. Naruto grinned as he heard this. This is what he expected academy life to be like. He was eager to get started. Kai-sensei continued, last year you focused on accessing your chakra and trying to learn your first jutsu. Some of you succeeded, some of you did not. If you have not made any progress in the henge after the first month, I would advise you to think about civilian school, as ninja life may not be for you. So to begin, let's head outside and run 5 miles before the temperature picks up. The rest of the class groaned, but Naruto was just glad it wasn't history. As the year continued on, Naruto found that he liked this year more than any other. Every day they would exercise for 2 hours, attempt ninjutsu for an hour, eat lunch, learn taijutsu and spar for 2 hours, and study different ninjutsus and genjutsus for the last hour. He could tell that this pace was hard on the other students, but he was thriving. He was always an energetic kid, so the exercise was as nice for him as it was horrible for the others. He already had 2 jutsus down, so he could focus on the bunshin during ninjutsu practice. Kai-sensei was very impressed that he was the only one to be working on that jutsu so far, compared to many of the others, who had still to get the henge. During taijutsu, he paid close attention to the sensei, and being one of the only ones with any energy left at that point, often sparred with Kai-sensei himself during the demonstrations. Due to this close interaction, he was advancing much quicker in this area than the other students. At the end of each lesson, Kai-sensei would talk about ninjutsu and genjutsu. He would discuss which element held advantage over the others, when they should be attempted during a fight, and how genjutsu could be used, either subtly or overtly. As the other children were wiped out by the taijutsu at this point, Naruto was usually the only one fully aware at this point. Because of this, Naruto was able to convince Kai-sensei to teach him how to disrupt genjutsus by flaring his chakra. Every day after his lessons, Naruto would go to the river to practice his chakra control. By this point, he had almost gotten to the point where he could do it subconsciously, so he knew he would have to find new ways to train his chakra. The next day, Naruto started his newest chakra-controlled training, tree climbing. After asking Kai-sensei for an exercise, he had originally pointed him to the leaf on his forehead exercise, but Naruto had asked for an exercise that used more chakra than that. Kai-sensei, proud of his most hard-working student, was only too happy to give him one. Tree climbing, he decided, promised to be just as useful in the field as water walking, assuming he could learn it. Water walking needed a constant stream of chakra to exit from the feet. As long as the amount of chakra outputted was enough to support his body weight, it would. Tree climbing, on the other hand, required an exact amount of chakra focused on the feet, rather than a constant stream, so it would be more difficult for someone like Naruto to learn. As evidenced by the blast marks on the bark of the tree, he was using too much chakra. Naruto sat at a very familiar scene, as his current sensei was arguing once again with the academy head, on the discussion of whether to advance Naruto ahead again. This time, if the headmaster approved, he would be joining the graduating class and would be a genin by the end of the year. I must say, when I advanced you before, I thought that would be the end of it. I didn't expect you to try to advance out of the 4th year. The headmaster almost mourned. Naruto decided to make his feeling about this matter clear to the headmaster. I must say, I'm also surprised by this. I have really enjoyed this year compared to the last one. I feel like I'm back at the temple, chores in the morning, followed by chakra training, followed by taijutsu, followed by meditation. I'm learning loads about taijutsu and feel like I have a good thing going. The headmaster looked quizzically at him before turning to Kai-sensei. Well then, why do you want young Sakumo-sen to move up to the graduating class? Kai smiled before answering. While I am very proud of Sakumo-sen for his performance in my class, it's beginning to affect the other students more than it should. Sakumo-san is constantly lapping the second-best students during runs and performing 2 or 3 times the physical exercise. Instead of being a driving force to catch up to, or an inspiration, in other words, it ends up depressing the others. He has mastered all 3 academy jutsus as well as being able to disrupt C-rank Jinjutsus. I am the only one who can give him any challenge in a taijutsu fight. If things continue along this trend, I will be forced to ignore his training to catch the others up. Both Naruto and the headmaster looked a bit stunned by this. Kai continued on. At this point, Sakumo-san needs to spar with others that can match his taijutsu skill. Right now, the only class that has that skill is the graduating class. Quite frankly, this year is meant to challenge the students by pushing them to the breaking point. The final year is where that slow things down just a bit and make sure they have the skills to succeed. If Sakumo-san is doing this well now, I have no doubts that he would fit in very well with the skill level if he were to be moved. The headmaster nodded, thinking about the others in Kai's class. If Hayashi-san was taking this much attention away from them, that would need to be fixed or the others would suffer for it. Well, I must say, I am impressed with your work ethic, Sakumo-san. Very well, I will transfer you to the graduating class. As Naruto heard this, he was quite surprised. Although he knew he would be graduating earlier than expected, he didn't think that he was this advanced yet. He knew he would have to rethink his plans, as they called for him to be a genin at age 10, not 9. The headmaster decided to add one more thing. You may not be the only one graduating early as well. Recently, Uchiha-sama has been trying to persuade me to allow his son to graduate even earlier. I feel much better about letting you graduate early simply because I know that you have earned it by working hard. I prefer to make these sort of decisions between the academy instructors and myself, rather than having to make a politically pressured decision. Graduation exam day. Naruto reflected over the last few months as he walked to the academy for his last day. After he had been transferred, the new class had looked at him with a combination of suspicion and envy. While others had been allowed to skip grades before, they had mostly come from major clans. The fact that he, an orphan, was allowed to skip made interacting with them a bit of a chore. He was getting a better challenge in the taijutsu fights now, as the graduating class had older students who were more advanced than the others. He was still among the top 5 best, but he no longer had overwhelming superiority. Earlier in the year, when he had mastered the tree walking exercise, he was finally able to use a small enough sample of chakra for which he could perform the bunshin. With his chakra now under at least a reasonable amount of control, he was able to learn and invent other ways to train his chakra. In order to maximize his training before he graduated, Naruto had decided to try to learn ways to always be practicing his chakra control. He would stick different items to his body and try to move them around under his clothing using only his chakra. He would also try to send chakra to only one muscle in order to try and augment the strength of that muscle. In fact, it was this idea that led him to his next endeavor and quite possibly, his greatest idea ever. He wondered if he could use chakra in order to stress a muscle in the same way that exercise would stress it. If he could do this, he could literally train his body without even moving. Of course, that would take much greater chakra control and a better understanding of the human body, but if he could do it, he could quickly become the strongest and fastest man alive. As the graduating instructor approached his class, Naruto could see he had a strained look on his face. Something was about to happen that his instructor didn't like. Class, as you know, today will be the graduating exams. We have worked very hard to get here and I have faith that you will all do very well. Additionally, a younger student will be taking the exams as well. The entire class looked to Naruto, but the instructor shook his head. No, not Hayashi-san, the heir of the Uchiha clan is being allowed to partake the exams today. The instructor waved at the door, as a short black-haired boy walked in. He was considerably shorter than everyone else and had a blank look on his face. Due to reasons which I will not go into, Uchiha-san has been allowed to take the graduation test early. What? A random boy shouted, we've been busting our humps for 5 years to become ninja and some kid from a clan gets to skip all that? Quite a few of his classmates agreed with that remark, but the instructor didn't seem to be in the mood to hear it. Quiet, everyone. Sometimes these things happen. As ninjas, it is your duty to follow the orders you are given. Politics and power often create confusing situations. Let my last act as a teacher to you be to just deal with it. The sensei calmed down before instructing Itachi Uchiha to take a seat. Alright everyone, we will start with the written exam. You will have 2 hours to complete it, with that said do your best. After the written exam, the entire class headed outside to begin their taijutsu evaluation. Here, Naruto knew they would spar with an academy instructor before sparring with one of the other students. In order to pass, they needed to last against the instructor for 1 minute. Obviously, the instructor would not be fighting with his full abilities, or no one would pass. Naruto and the other students began warming up and stretching. Alright class, I will call your names in alphabetical order to fight against Hiro-sensei for your test. First up Tenchi Aburame. The class's regular instructor shouted. A hooded and inconspicuous boy emerged from the crowd and prepared to fight against the academy teacher. When it was his turn to fight, Naruto stepped in front of his old instructor. Hiro-sensei blinked for a moment before recognizing him. Tsukumo-san, I thought you had been transferred to the 4th year, not 5th year? I was, but halfway through the year they transferred me here. Naruto responded shortly. Hiro-sensei nodded. Very well, prepare yourself. Naruto nodded and the fight began. They both assumed their stances before Hiro decided to start things off with a punch to Naruto's chest. Naruto deflected the fist with his forearm while sidestepping away. For the next 10 seconds the fight continued like this, Sensei attacking and Naruto deflected and sidestepping, careful to stay within the confines of the spar. After the last attack, Naruto put more space between himself and his old sensei. When Hiro-sensei tried to make up for the space difference by lunging forward with more power, Naruto grabbed his wrist and threw his sensei over his head, using his sensei's own power against him. It was a classic Aikido move that his sensei would have never fallen for if he had been fighting for real, but for a spar like this, it was perfect for demonstrating his prowess. After the throw, Naruto capitalized by going on the attack, striking at his sensei's knees and joints. Hiro-sensei blocked, deflected, and dodged, but didn't attack so that Naruto could show what he could do. Naruto and Hiro alternated between this kind of fighting for a while before Hiro-sensei decided to try a finisher. He blocked Naruto's most recent strike with a much harder block in order to expose Naruto's back, then grabbed his shoulders to pull Naruto into a knee strike. Instead, Naruto curled up, used Hiro's pull on his shoulders to power him through a backward somersault, before landing a quick strike on Hiro-sensei's exposed back. Time! His instructor shouted from behind him. Pass, Hiro-sensei declared to his instructor. Good job, Tsukumo. His old instructor congratulated. Naruto rested a bit during the last half of the fights, with the exception of one. He suspected that due to the fact that he and Itachi were the youngest, they would make them fight each other. As expected, Itachi was one of the last to go. As Naruto observed him, he could see that Itachi seemed to have a lot of experience fighting against people bigger than him. He used his center of gravity to his advantage, and relied on speed and cunning more than strength. As he saw this, Naruto began to plan for his own fight against him. As expected, when it came time to fight each other, Naruto was paired off with Itachi. For these fights, a win was not expected to pass, but if the child lost, they had to show that their fighting prowess was good enough to succeed in the real world. These fights were observed by both senseis in order to determine just that. As Itachi entered the ring, he observed his opponent. What he saw surprised him a bit. His opponent was a bit taller than him, but clearly closer to his age than to the others. He thought that he was the only one graduating early, but clearly that wasn't the case. As he readied himself for the fight, he noticed that his opponent was taking a bit more relaxed stance. Underestimating me, no doubt. Itachi thought before preparing to prove him wrong. As soon as the instructor said to begin, Itachi launched himself at the other boy. He stuck to his pattern of using superior speed to overwhelm his opponent's defenses at first before countering the blind attacks his opponent would try to change the circumstances. As expected, and like most of his other fights, he fell into a rhythm. Soon his opponent would grow tired of only defending and attack with a wild haymaker. Itachi would then use the power of this move against him with a throw before finishing him off. He heard his opponent growl and knew the attack would come soon. As expected, seconds later, a wild haymaker was thrown for which he grabbed onto, adding his own strength and guidance to throw his opponent. That was how it was supposed to go, only, the moment he tried to add his own strength, his opponent has stopped all forward momentum. Instead, Itachi could feel himself be kneed in the side before he was thrown outside the arena. Winner, Tsukumo Hiyashi, he heard the instructor say as he looked confused at the result. Somehow, his opponent had known what he was going to do and led him into it. At the end of the day was the ninjutsu portion of the test. The students had to demonstrate each of the 3 academy jutsus. If they had passed the other tests as well, they received a Konoha imprinted Hitaiite. Naruto walked out of the academy with his head held high. His academy days were over and he was officially ready to begin his ninja life. Or at least, that is what he had been told. Truthfully, he wasn't so sure. Despite his high placement in the academy rankings, he felt like he wasn't sure if he was ready for ninja life. He had planned to be a little ahead of his classmates, but he didn't expect to be transferred ahead that last time. Due to this, he had decided on a new course of action that would be considered highly unusual. Normally, new genin were assigned to a 3-person team and given a jonin sensei. They would traditionally go on D ranks and train until they were ready for C ranks. Depending on how long this took, the skills of the team, the patience of the sensei, and many other factors, they would eventually be nominated for the Chunin exams. Instead, Naruto was planning on requesting an immediate transfer into the Genin Reserve Corps. The Genin Reserve Corps was usually a place for injured genin, older genin, or inactive genin. Oftentimes, if a team took the Chunin exams and 1 or 2 of the members passed while the others didn't, the remainder would be placed into the Reserve Corps while their fates were being decided. They had no superior officers and were considered the lowest-ranked people in the village. They were expected to take the D-rank missions that were left over after the genin teams had taken their pick. If they wanted to go on C-rank missions, they had to be chosen by Chunin team leaders who needed extra help for their missions. To his knowledge, nobody had ever gone straight there from the academy, but it was technically possible. Either way, he hoped to slide in under the radar. In this regard, he hoped that Itachi would help him. He had suspected that graduating from the academy at age 9 would attract some unwanted attention from the village, but who is going to pay attention to a 9-year-old passing the exam when a 7-year-old is graduating right next to him? You want to what? The woman behind the desk couldn't quite believe her ears. As one of the office workers in charge of the Genin Reserve Corps, she spent most of her days talking to genin who wanted out of the corps, not genin wanting in. I want to transfer to the Genin Reserve Corps. I know that it isn't a traditional path, but I graduated from the academy a lot sooner than I expected. I want more time to train and study before joining a team. I would feel a lot better if I could train on my own and use the genin library to prepare for ninja life. Unlike Uchiha-sen, who graduated even younger than me, I don't have a big clan to rely on for training and support. As soon as I get assigned to a team and ordered on a C rank, my life will be on the line. If I get a jonin who views taking a team of genin as beneath him, my career could end a lot quicker than I want it to. So you just want to study and train an extra year before applying for a team? She asked. Exactly, I can take solo D ranks to prepare, maybe even a low-risk C rank later on. But for now, I just want more time to train. I'm still 3 years younger than most of the people I graduated with, so I have time. The woman thought about what he had said. It was true that some jonin senseis didn't want to have genin and tried to rush the genin through the cycle faster than they should. She looked again at the child before her. She was quite surprised that he had graduated as young as he was. Very well, I will approve your transfer. I expect you to act responsibly and not go on C ranks until you are sure you are ready. Naruto walked out of the administration building with his head held high. He knew that this course of action would either make or break him. Most people fought tooth and nail to get out of the Genin Reserve Corps, and he expected he would have to do the same when it was time for him to leave. For now, however, his days were his own. There were no academy teachers to force him to study useless things. He would have access to the genin library and training grounds, and he would be able to choose which missions he went on, to an extent. The first course of action was to make a plan of what he wanted to achieve for his time in the Corp. For this, he decided to check out the Genin library to see what was available to him for study. As Naruto wandered the shelves of the Genin library, he was a bit saddened at what he saw. While he knew the Chunin library was much more expansive, he still expected the Genin library to hold a bit more than this. Indeed, the Genin library turned out to be little more than a room with shelves lining the walls. One area that he had been excited to learn about was Fuinjutsu. Ever since head monk Mateto had identified the Uzumakis as legendary Fuinjutsu masters, Naruto had been hoping to learn the subject. Unfortunately, it seems that there is a grand total of one book about Fuinjutsu in the Genin library. He examined the thin book and found that it was little more than a how-to book on creating and using storage seals and explosive seals. Naruto thought to himself, I guess those are the only things most people do with Fuinjutsu. Regardless, he added it to his ever-growing list of things to do. Naruto continued to look through the shelves, adding to his list of topic he wanted to study. Among his list so far were greater chakra control, trap making, field tactics, strategy, weapons study, tracking, field medicine, and etiquette. He debated whether to include etiquette on his list, but knew that usually it was the wealthy who hired ninja and expected them to behave themselves in civilized society, so it went on the list. For now though, Naruto paged through the chakra control books, looking for new exercises that he could perform both actively and passively. He was far more interested in the passive chakra control exercises, as those he could do while studying here in the library. Multitasking was a key trait that he was looking forward to achieving, and if it helped him save some time, he was all for it. Naruto was checking out the D-rank mission office for the first time. He had mentally prepared himself to drastically lower any expectations on what sort of missions he would get. Naruto knew that most of the D-ranks were little more than chores. Some jonin liked to take some of the D-ranks and turn them into mini-missions and encourage teamwork, but at the end of the day, they were chores designed to give the genin extra money while they focused on training. Naruto looked through the available assignments that were left over from the teams. He was looking for a solo mission that wouldn't take long. Eventually he found one of picking up trash down by a river. He figured that wouldn't be too different from his landscaping job that he had taken during the summer. He walked over to the teenager sitting behind the counter to check out the D rank for himself. The teenager looked suspiciously at him before asking to see his credentials. Naruto handed them over silently and waited for the office worker to be done with his suspicions. He eventually received both of them back before he headed out to perform his first D rank. The D rank was a simple one. He was confused at first as to where to get garbage bags and where to take the trash when they were full, but a quick stop back at the mission office resolved his questions. He spent a few hours quietly picking up trash alongside the river. There wasn't too much as he suspected this mission repeated itself fairly often, but after a couple of hours he was done. Naruto returned to the mission office to report his success and collect his pay, meager as it was. Regardless, he now had a successful D rank on his official record. His days continued on like this for 3 months. Each weekday, he would collect and do a D rank mission for a few hours. Naruto mostly liked the short D ranks he could do by himself, but occasionally he was assigned to work with a few others. If he did work with others, he noted that most of them were short-tempered teenagers who were disgusted with the fact that they were still doing D ranks at their age and not something better. Naruto resolved himself not to end up like them and to make sure that when it was time to start taking C ranks, he would show the Chunin leaders that he would be hard-working and pleasant to work with. Naruto made a habit of going to the office at different time and poking his head into the C rank office to see how busy they were at times. As he expected, during the late morning and early afternoon, the office was flooded with genin like himself trying to get onto a C rank mission. On the other hand, in the early morning when the office first opened, he noticed that there were Chunin actively looking for genin to accompany them on missions. He resolved himself to start altering his schedule now so that he would be wide awake early in the morning and able to get C ranks when it was time. Aside from the missions, he spent most of his days training. Each night he would read the books he had flagged from his first time in the library, and make a plan for the following day. Each day would usually start out with the same sort of exercises he did back in the academy, except he pushed himself harder each time. He would then usually scour the training grounds looking for discarded weapons and equipment that he could use for himself. Most of what he found were broken or worn pieces that were probably right to be discarded, but Naruto took them anyway. He learned how to fix most of them himself, and used them for his trap-making practice. When Naruto had added trap-making to his list, he had forgotten one thing. Trap-making was an extensive field with numerous types and ways to be done. The central fact was that they all needed equipment to perform. Equipment he didn't have and equipment he didn't want to spend all his money buying. Some of the cruder traps could be done with what was found in nature, but those probably wouldn't fool even a lesser ninja. Instead, he collected the scraps left over from the higher-ranking ninja, repaired them the best he could, and used them for practice. He didn't get to produce all the traps from the book, but over time, he got a much better understanding of how traps worked overall. When he began learning about field medicine, he discovered that the ninja hospital offered a week-long class to introduce genin to basic field medicine. Naruto immediately signed up for the next available course. Over the week, he had received an extensive review of what he had learned in the academy, and what he had missed from skipping so much of the academy. They showed the students what to do in emergency situations and how to perform crude surgery if nothing else was available. None of the students were particularly eager to perform a real-life cauterization in the field, especially on themselves. At the end, they were all given a small booklet of the best plants typically found in Fire Country, and how they could be used to make healing salves and medicines. After this week, Naruto found field medicine to be a very crude field, but in a real-life situation, he supposed it was better than nothing. At night, he studied strategy, tactics, weapons, and etiquette. He knew he was approaching the point where what he needed now was experience. After a few C ranks, he could redesign his training schedule and adjust what he needed to learn. So, after 3 months of training in D ranks, he resolved to take his first C rank tomorrow. Naruto showed up bright and early, right as the mission office was opening, so that he could receive his first C rank mission. He knew that he would have to be selective, so as not to take anything he couldn't handle, but at the same time, knew he couldn't be too picky. After waiting for a few minutes, an older Chunin poked his head in through the door to see if anyone was in the room. Surprised to see a child there, he walked in and said, "Hey, are you a ninja?" Naruto replied, "Yes, I graduated a few months ago and am looking for a low-risk C rank to get started with." The Chunin nodded and thought to himself before continuing, "Well, I have a C rank and could use an extra hand. It's probably just going to be a lot of running around without much danger. I suppose you could come along." "What would we be doing, if you don't mind me asking?" Naruto questioned politely. "Delivering payment to a series of mines. We collect the money from the head office in the capital, then go to the mines spread across Fire Country and deliver the monthly pay. There may be a risk of bandits trying to get the money for themselves, but they usually don't bother when it's ninja doing the delivery." "That sounds fine. If you're willing to have me, I'd love to go," Naruto replied. The Chunin chuckled and said, "This has to be one of your first missions, kid. I haven't seen anyone this excited for a mission like this for a while. Alright, go pack for a 2-week mission, kid. There will be a lot of running around and we can probably hunt for most of our food, so pack light and meet me at the main gate in an hour. By the way, the name is Beko." Tsukumo Hayashi, Naruto introduced before heading home to pack. Naruto rushed home to pack for his first mission. It sounded like it would mostly be a lot of running around without much danger, so it was exactly the sort of low-risk C rank he had been hoping for. As he arrived home, he made a mental checklist of the things that he would need. He had prepared for situations like this by learning how to make a basic storage seal and packing his optional or heavy items in a seal while keeping the items he absolutely needed on his person. In the seal was a sleeping bag, rainproof tent, spare clothing, extra kunai, rations, and water. On his person would be kunai, a compass, a map, a few ration bars, a water bottle, his sealing scroll, and an empty sealing scroll. He decided that this should be sufficient for a mission like this. Perhaps he could ask Beko for some advice in packing for future missions. He seemed like an easygoing bloke. As he approached the main gate, he saw that Beko had not arrived yet. He checked around the gate to make sure before plopping himself down on the ground where he could see everyone coming. 10 minutes later, Beko approached the gate himself. He looked a little surprised seeing Naruto there already, but remembered it was his first mission with a smirk. "Alright, let's check out with the guards and get moving." They approached one of the gate guards to register that they were departing on a mission. Since it was still early, there weren't many people trying to enter or exit Konoha yet. The guard took down their names, ninja ID numbers, and mission ID number before wishing them luck. "Alright, kid, have you ever been to the capital before?" Beko asked. Naruto replied, "Once, about a year ago. Just take that road straight north for about a week at walking distance." Naruto pointed to one of the roads leading away from Konoha. "Well, we're going to go faster than walking, but yeah. Why don't you set a pace that you are comfortable with? We will travel parallel to the road about 100 feet away." Naruto nodded, understanding that Beko was unfamiliar with how fast or well he could travel. He set off, tree walking up the nearest sturdy tree in the forest surrounding the road to demonstrate that he knew that skill before tree hopping at a pace roughly equal to what he practiced with. Beko trailed behind him for a while before coming to his side. "Not bad, kid. How long can you keep up at this pace?" Naruto thought before answering, "Well, I try to practice tree hopping around this pace, so I can go like this for a couple hours before taking a break." Beko's eyes widened at hearing that. This kid was moving at a high genin speed of travel, which was the speed most Chunin and Jonin traveled at. Fast enough to make good time, but cautious enough to be wary of any dangers. He doubted that he was paying attention to his surroundings the way that an experienced ninja would, but then there was still pretty green. If this kid was capable of moving this fast despite his age, it was no wonder he was a genin already. If you can go this speed for that long, it's no wonder how you graduated early, he eventually said. Naruto nodded almost mournfully. Yeah, at first when the instructor wanted to move me ahead, I was excited, but after a while I started to miss it. I knew I would be a little younger than the others when I graduated, but I didn't expect to graduate this early. Apparently, instead of inspiring the others to work harder to catch up to me, I was depressing them into thinking they would never catch up with me, so he endorsed me to graduate early. Beko nodded. Don't get too down. I fought in the last war and had to fight with a lot of kids that were graduated early, but still not ready for a war zone. Then again, I don't think anyone is really ever ready for a war zone. Still, it's been a while since anyone has graduated early, probably not since just after the Kyuubi attack. Naruto grinned. Actually, I'm not even the youngest to graduate this year. There was another kid graduating at age 7 as well. 7? Beko said, surprised. That's not the youngest I've ever heard of, but it's close. Why would anyone let a kid that young graduate during peacetime? I think he was the clan heir of the Uchiha clan Naruto started. Oh, the Uchiha. That explains it. Beko suddenly said understandingly. They're some of the biggest-headed people around. I have no doubt they graduated their heir as early as possible just to try and rub it in everyone's faces how great they are. Anyway, Naruto said, breaking the current conversation. What is this mission going to be like in more detail? The mission is going to be pretty simple. At this rate, we will have to camp out about a few hours away from the capital. Tomorrow, we will pick up the money from the head office along with a map of where to deliver it and instructions on which mine gets how much money. Since this is your first time, we will go to the first mine together to show you how it works. After that, we will probably split apart and each deliver to 1 or 2 mines before meeting up again and repeating. The whole process should take a couple of weeks, maybe a bit shorter seeing your traveling speed. Why don't they just deliver the money themselves? Naruto asked. A combination or reasons. First, handing a substantial amount of money is a risk because the employees might decide to take it and run. Next, there is the threat of bandits, so they would need a larger force of security to protect it, which costs more. Third, ninjas can travel much quicker than most others, so there is the speed factor. Lastly, there are multiple ninja villages that they could hypothetically hire. If Konoha doesn't do a good job at a reasonable rate, they could hire another village to do it. In the end, it's just cheaper and more secure to do it this way. They reached the capital late the next morning. Beko expertly led them to the home office of the Mighty Mountain Mining Company. They navigated the building to the payroll department and announced themselves as the ninja hired for the job. The people at the payroll department, who had gone through this many times, gave them the map of the distribution, paperwork for the mines, and the money for each mine. Beko expertly sealed the money away into a scroll that he carried on his person. They then headed out to deliver the money to the first mine. The two headed to the first mine, located to the east near a group of mountains that had a good supply of silver being removed. The single eastern mine was only a half-day's travel away from the capital, but was included in their mission delivery, so it was a bit of a detour away from the other mines. Once they were away from the capital, Beko showed Naruto how he was going to separate the money into separate piles for each mine. He explained that he did this here, out in the middle of nowhere, so that none of the employees could see how the money was divided up and would know in what order they were delivering the money. If any of them were being bribed or blackmailed for the schedule, they wouldn't be able to give accurate information. Beko explained to Naruto that after he showed him how to make a delivery, they would travel west together before splitting up to distribute the rest of the money faster. As they approached what could only be a mining effort, Beko quickly showed him where to find the people in charge. Typically, the people in charge found themselves living in the nicer areas and supervising the lesser supervisors in operating the mine. In this case, it was an older man sitting behind a desk in a house near the mine. He looked like he had never mined a day in his life, but that was probably true considering the fairness of the world. They unsealed the money intended for this mine, distributed the paperwork, and received a signature confirming the payment. The entire process took only a few minutes and they were soon out the door, headed back west, to where the primary ore extracted was iron, on its way to be turned into steel. Naruto and Beko separated a day later, each going to hit 2 mines before meeting at another mine the next day. Naruto had been given a slightly shorter route than Beko. In this region, there were a lot of mines, due to the heavy concentration of iron ore just beneath the surface. Naruto was a bit scared to be on his own, but knew he should be fine. It was, after all, a low-risk mission. Naruto traveled for 2 hours before hitting the first mine. Probably the most trouble he had was finding the proper authority at the mine, but in the end he resorted to his old standby of using the henge to appear older. Once he had located the man in charge, he changed back to his original self, not knowing whether or not he should try to approach him as anyone other than himself. The man was highly dubious about a kid delivering the payroll money, but in the end Naruto just asked him if he wanted the money or not. In the end, he had received his signature, and they had gotten their money. The next mine was about 4 hours away, and Naruto took a slight detour to have lunch near a river. He was able to catch a couple fish with a net Beko had lent him, something that he resolved to include on his next mission. Naruto roasted the fish while taking a break before continuing on to the next mine. As he arrived, the exchange happened almost exactly the same as the previous one. Naruto continued on to the last mine where he would meet Beko that night. A few hours later, as evening was approaching, he arrived at the mine and looked for his commander. He spotted Beko lounging on a tree branch overlooking the mining camp and headed over. Beko spotted him as he approached. Any problems? Only in trying to convince the guys in charge that I really was delivering their money, Naruto responded. Beko chuckled before leading Naruto over to a campground he had already scouted. Naruto and Beko walked slowly to the gates of Konoha. They had completed the mission in just over 12 days, which was pretty good according to Beko. They were walking the last distance so that Naruto could ask Beko any other questions he had about C-rank missions or anything else. Beko, having accepted his rank and place in Konoha, answered his questions in a helpful manner. They had talked about what sort of missions Naruto should be taking now, what else to bring on missions, when he should try to join a permanent team, and what sort of lifestyle most ninjas ended up leading. Beko, for instance, was a civilian ninja who had worked hard to achieve his rank. He had neither the chakra reserves nor the intellect to go for the Jonin rank, but he was satisfied with Chunin. He explained that most civilian ninja had great difficulty going beyond being a career genin, and many ended up taking administrative roles rather than ninja roles. They checked back into Konoha with the gate guard before walking back to the mission office. They continued their conversation all the way to the mission office where they reported a successful mission. Naruto thanked Beko for allowing him to accompany him and for teaching him so much on his first mission. Beko just laughed and told the kid to take it easy before departing home for some rest. From that point on, Naruto went on a few more C-rank missions with some time in between for training. He always showed up early from missions and was usually offered spots on mission teams if he wanted them. This allowed him to be a bit more selective about missions and to avoid situations he knew he wasn't ready for. He had already gone on a protection mission, another delivery mission, and most recently, a bandit mission. Naruto had been cautious about whether or not to take missions that might involve killing. He knew that it was only a matter of time before he would have to take his first human life, but wasn't sure if he could. When a Chunin had come looking for genin to help him with a small group of bandits that had raped the granddaughter of an important port city's mayor, Naruto decided to try and get it over with. He had turned down other bandit eradication missions previously, but he decided to accept this one due to a number of factors. 1. The group was small, so if he froze before or after his first kill, his team would not be affected. 2. The mission involved some tracking, which he was trying to learn. Finally, the Chunin in charge would be Beko, who understood that it would be his first time killing, so Naruto felt more comfortable taking a mission that involved killing with him than he likely would anyone else. The mission had been relatively simple. They had gone to the port city, seen what the bandits had done to the poor, barely teenage girl. They spoke with some of the people who had interacted with the bandits to learn the general direction of where they were headed. Naruto and his team caught up with them a day later when the bandits had set up camp for the night. The bandits were circled around a fire enjoying a deer that they were roasting. The bandits were only 5 in number, so it was a very small group, but if they hadn't raped such an important person, a group that small would have likely avoided the attention of ninja. Beko made the simple plan of simply killing them with shuriken and kunai from afar. Beko and an older genin would take out 2 of them each, having already marked which ones, after Naruto had taken out his first. All Naruto had to do was aim true and the other 2 would finish their marks off. Naruto had taken some time, but eventually just threw a kunai at his target. His aim was true and hit the bandit just below the neck, hitting him in his spinal cord. The other 2 had immediately dispatched their targets, while Naruto had thrown up whatever was in his stomach. Beko took photos of the targets to confirm death while the other genin looked through their belongings for anything of value. Apparently, that was one of the extra perks of bandit eradication. Anything not claimed in the mission information was fair game for the ninja. Naruto received his share of the loot, while Beko tried his best to counsel him on the way home. Naruto was sitting in the C-rank mission office, waiting early in the morning for a C-rank mission. It had been 2 weeks since his first kill and he wasn't looking forward to a mission which would require his second. He had been here for only a few minutes and he had rejected 2 offers to join missions already. One was for a larger bandit eradication and the other was for civilian protection detail. He was in no mood to kill again and wasn't in the mood to guard some whiny civilian either. "Hey, are you looking for a mission?" a girl asked, interrupting his somewhat depressing thoughts. Naruto looked her over, face markings and dogs trailing her, and Inuzuka. "Yes, but I guess I'm being a little picky at the moment." "What is your mission?" "Search and rescue," she replied immediately. "It's the only kind of missions I take these days." Naruto considered for a minute. That sounded promising: no killing, less contact with whiny civilians, and using skills he wanted to learn more about. "Sure, that sounds good. I'll go pick up my pack from home. Anything special I'll need for this mission outside of the standard supplies?" Naruto asked. "We'll probably be traveling alongside roads and tracking a group of travelers. Outside that, I don't know how long it will take, so just plan accordingly. I'm going to hang out here and wait to see if I can grab a couple more genin, so meet me at the main gate in an hour." Naruto stood at the main gate a while later, waiting for his new team. Exactly 1 hour after he had left the mission office, the Inuzuka showed up with a surly-looking genin behind her. "All right, a group of travelers has gone missing between Kozaki, a port city to the east, and Hiragawa, a port city to the south. These travelers were on their way to establish a sea trading agreement between their two ports. For some reason, they decided to travel there on land, but they are already 5 days overdue and none of the travelers along the same road have reported seeing them. We are going to rush to their origin point of Kozaki and follow their trails as best we can. We will likely be moving fast, so try to keep up." Naruto nodded at the Inuzuka's briefing and hoped he would be at least better at running than the other genin. After 2 hours of running, it was obviously apparent that the other genin was in fact a terrible traveler. Their small group had already had to stop for a break twice now just to give the other genin a chance to rest. During their breaks, Naruto had introduced himself, as Tsukumo of course, and learned the name of his other teammates. The Inuzuka was named Hana and was the Chunin on-call for low-rank search and rescue missions, and the genin was a civilian-born teenage boy named Ko. Hana had explained that she had been the Chunin on-call for the last 2 years and had been almost exclusively on search and rescue missions. "When a request comes in for a search and rescue mission, they find me wherever I am and I have to head out, usually within an hour or two. Sometimes I have time to recruit a few genin to help with the search, other times they wake me in the middle of the night and send me on my way." Hana commiserated to Naruto. "Why did you agree to become the Chunin on-call then?" Naruto asked. "Well, it did get me promoted to Chunin, and one of my cousins had the job before me. When I'm done with these missions, I can move on to any field I want," Hana explained. "What do you want to do?" Naruto asked, curious about the girl who was a lot closer to his age than his other Chunin commanders. "At this point, I want to try out the medical field. Either becoming a medic nin or a veterinarian," Hana said with passion. "But I can't do that until I find a replacement. Anyway, break's over. Let's get moving," Hana shouted, mostly in the direction of Ko, who had caught his breath again. Eventually, they managed to make their way to the origin city of Kozaki. Hana immediately went to the authorities to find information on the people they were supposed to be looking for. They met with the deputy mayor to discover that the group had in fact left on time. A police officer was summoned who escorted them to the people's houses so that Hana and her triplet dogs, the Heimer brothers, could get sense from the leaders of the group. With that, to the grief of Ko, they were once again on their way along the trail, this time headed toward Hiragawa. Hana had left Ko at a cafe near the entrance of the town to get some rest, but their time in the city was too short for his liking. Fortunately, it had not rained so far this week, and the dogs were able to pick up a weak scent from the group they were pursuing. Hana had said that they should be able to find the group eventually, since they had a scent to start off with, and their traveling speed would only make the scent grow stronger. As they were traveling, Naruto struck up another conversation with Hana. "Hana-san, what do you think happened to the group we're looking for?" Hana looked at him and replied, "More likely than not, bandits or wild animals. It could be that they were just lost, but that usually happens in much worse weather. And the name is Hana, not Hana-san." "Dang, I was hoping to avoid bandits on this mission," Naruto said. Hana looked curious at that statement. "Why is that?" "I killed my first bandit on my last mission, I guess I'm still dealing with it." Naruto muttered the last part of the sentence. Hana's superior hearing still picked it up, however. "I see, that can be difficult, especially for non-clan ninja. What happened to your genin team?" Naruto smirked and said, "I didn't have one. You can probably tell that I graduated a bit younger than others, even younger than I originally planned to. I decided that I wanted some extra time to train and study what I might have missing in the academy. That, and I wanted to decide what missions I wanted to take instead of letting some random jonin, who might not even want to be a sensei, decide for me. Hana considered what he had said. Well, just based on your physical endurance level, I'd say you're more than ready. Most genin I bring along are more like Ko. Hana gestured behind her, where Ko was panting heavily trying to keep up. Are you going to apply for a team soon? I was thinking of just keeping up the way I'm doing and then try to join a team with some of my old classmates. Like I said, I'll still be younger than them even when it's time for them to graduate, Naruto said. The next day, the Himura brothers found a patch of blood that they identified as one of the groups. Hana stopped to investigate the scene. She and the others had noted that the scent trails divided here into separate groups and divided her team to match it. Naruto got one of the Himura brothers and they were instructed to follow the trail leading north into the dense forest. If they found anything, they were to send up a flare that Hana had given them and make their way back to the road if they hadn't found anything in 4 hours. Naruto followed his assigned dog as he led him through the deepening forest. After half an hour of following the scent trails, Hana's dog eventually barked at a cave that they had stumbled upon. Trying to read the dog's mood on whether there were victims in the cave or bad guys failed, seeing how this was the first time he really interacted with the dog. He decided to just take it cautious and slowly enter the cave. He thought briefly of sending up a flare, but decided to at least scout it out a little first. Naruto entered the cave as silently as he could, waiting for his eyes to adjust to the darkness. He followed the cave in deeper and was eventually drawn to a distant light at the end of the cavern. He peeked behind a rock and saw them, bandits, again. It looked like a group of about a dozen, and Naruto had found their hideout. Naruto stayed quiet as he observed them from the entrance of the big cavern room. They looked like they had been here for a while, as most of the bandits appeared to be either sleeping or passed out in what looked like straw beds. He looked beyond them and saw what he had come searching for. Along the outer wall were 2 women, their hands bound and their faces beaten. It looked like they were being held by the bandits for entertainment. Naruto controlled himself, as he had seen enough. He quietly exited the cave and took out the flare Hana had given him. He climbed to the top of a nearby tree, being careful to look around for any bandits guarding the cave that may see the flare. He was about to set off his flare, when he spotted one in the distance to the south, Hana's position. Naruto looked to the dog, who had followed him quietly throughout, and asked, "Can you find this place again?" The dog gave what looked like a clear nod. "Okay, good enough for me," Naruto thought, before saying, "Lead me to Hana." When they found Hana, Naruto was able to detect a scent all by himself. When he caught a glimpse of why she had used her flare, he immediately felt the bow coming up from his stomach. It seemed that Hana had found out what happened to the men from the group, and Naruto could smell it from 50 feet away. Their bodies were in a pile which had been both rotting and being picked apart by various scavengers. "Tsukumo, as you can see, I found the bodies of the missing travelers. It was almost definitely bandits who robbed and killed them. Looking through the bodies, I can see that there are at least 3 missing," Hana explained. Naruto let his stomach settle before replying. "I think I found the bandits' camp. I was just about to send up a flare when I saw yours. There is a cave to the north of the road with about a dozen bandits inside. I scouted it out a little and saw they were holding 2 women hostage." Hana looked torn between congratulating him for his find and scolding him for his recklessness. Eventually she settled to just ask if he had seen Ko. Naruto shook his head before saying, "What now?" "I think you know what now. We killed the bandits, saved the women, and returned them home. For now let's return to the road and wait for Ko. He probably didn't see the flare," Hana said. Naruto nodded. "Damn, I wanted a mission with no killing, and now I'm about to do the same thing again." Ko eventually turned up later with a survivor. The survivor, a young man named Daiki, had fled as soon as he had seen the bandits. He then spent the next few days lost in the forest until Ko had found him. He confirmed that there were about a dozen bandits, but couldn't say anything more. Naruto had sketched out on some dirt the layout of the cave so they could plan out their strike. Hana looked at Naruto and wondered whether or not he would be able to complete this mission, due to the fact that he had only killed once before this. In the end she decided to speak with Naruto alone. "Tsukumo, can you take a walk with me?" "Sure," Naruto said as he followed her. They walked for a bit before Hana brought up her line of thinking. "Do you think you are up to the task of killing more bandits?" Naruto hesitated before answering, "I'm not sure. I know it's my duty and it probably won't be the last time I have to do something like this." But Naruto tried to finish his sentence, but just couldn't come up with the right words. "I know," Hana replied. "In some ways the second kill is a lot harder than the first kill. The first kill is usually an automatic response or such a new experience that you don't think about it too much at the time. The second time, you are usually well aware of what is about to happen." Naruto nodded as he heard this. "And you're right, Killing is unavoidable in the ninja profession. Those who can't kill usually get reassigned to administrative duties, and during peacetime, that's completely understandable. Anyway, dealing with this specific situation, I want you to wait outside the cave with Daiki. Hana brought the conversation back to the mission. But Naruto tried to interrupt. You are still a young genin, and you still have time to think about how you want your life to go. You can make this decision later, and I can't rely on anyone going into that cave that hasn't completely decided whether or not they can kill again. Ko and I will deal with the bandits. You will wait outside and protect Daiki. Okay, Naruto said weakly, embarrassed of his weakness. Alright, let's get back to the others. We'll plan our attack, Hana said, turning to return to the others. Hana chose to attack in the evening. She made a rough plan of waiting for one of them to come out of the cave, either to relieve themselves or get some fresh air. Hana would take him out, and Ko would henjin to him and take his place inside. Ko would then protect the women inside while Hana attacked from the front with her nin dogs. It was a simple plan and would probably work as long as they catch the bandits by surprise. Kenji finished off what was left of the sake in his bottle. His group had made a pretty good score off of this last group of travelers. They didn't have much in the way of supplies, but they had a pretty good amount of money. They also had a pair of not bad-looking women. The women would take care of their urges for a while before he and his men broke them like all the others before. Oh well, plenty more where they come from, he thought. Grumble. Kenji's stomach gave an uncomfortable rumble. Ugh, I knew those fish were probably too old. I'm gonna be sick, he thought. Kenji made his way over to the corner of the room to dig a hole in the ground to throw up in. He was recovering and filling the hole back with dirt when he saw what must have been a side effect from the drinking. He could have swore he saw a girl and 3 dogs killing his men. Wait, no, this isn't a hallucination, that's a ninja. Kenji's eyes widened as he thought for a moment of helping his men kill her, but she had already killed half his men with what looked like a sideways tornado. Screw them, I'm getting the fuck out of here, he thought. He made his way as slowly and unobtrusively to the exit as he could. As he exited the cave, he saw what looked like a little kid. Wait a sec, that mask and that symbol on his head, he's a ninja. I'll get some revenge, then get the hell out of here, he thought as he pulled out a dagger. The kid started shaking when he saw him and Kenji grinned. The kid is so scarred that he's shaking. This is gonna be sweet. As he reached the halfway point between himself and the kid's hand suddenly went to his back and pulled out a metal star. The kid threw it right at him. Kenji's eyes widened as the shuriken pierced his neck. Kenji felt himself fall to the ground as he stared in shock at the kid. He felt himself bleeding out as he saw the world going dark. What? No, this can't be. I can't die yet, some kid can't die. Naruto looked at the bandit that had just tried to kill him. He had frozen at first, but managed to kill the bandit before he got too close. He once again felt the bile rushing up from his stomach, but this time fought to keep it down. Naruto remained rooted in his spot, alternating between looking at the man he had just killed and keeping an eye on the cave for any others that tried to leave. A few minutes later, Hana and Ko walked out with the remaining 2 women. Hana instantly spotted the bandit laying on the ground and looked to Naruto. Naruto gave her a short nod indicating he had killed the man. Naruto and Hana were once again resting next to one another. They had taken the man and women back to their home village and were now returning back to Konoha. As a courtesy to Ko, they had slowed down their travel speed a bit, now that they were not in a rush to search for missing people. You did good, Tsukumo, Hana eventually said. She had given Naruto his space for the last few days, but since they were only a day away from Konoha, decided to talk with him now. Thanks, Naruto replied. I was really hoping for more of a break before I had to kill again, but I guess ninja can't always choose when or when not to take a life. Unfortunately, you're right. Almost every C rank carries the inherent risk of death, and as ninja, it's our job to be prepared. But still, we were able to find survivors and bring them home while at the same time getting rid of the cause. That is a lot better than most of my missions go, Hana said. What do you mean? Naruto asked. Hana explained, most of my missions end when I find out what happened. If I can just find the bodies of the missing people and determine cause of death, that is usually good enough for a mission success. Sometimes, I can't even find the bodies and it goes down in the books as a partial failure. Partial failure? Naruto said, confused. I thought missions were either successful or not successful. Hana nodded, not surprised at his confusion. For most missions, that is the case. But for search and rescue, oftentimes the contractor is just a company looking for lost expeditions. The company doesn't really expect us to find anyone, since they don't usually contact us until weeks or months afterward, but they are willing to pay us to look just so they are seen as doing something for the families of the missing. When we can't find anything in that case due to the amount of time that has passed and the area they could be in, the mission goes down as a partial failure. It means that Konoha still gets the money for looking and the mission can't be held against your record as a true mission failure would. Why would companies pay to have you look for people they don't expect to find? Naruto asked. It's a way of mitigating legal matters. If the family of a lost employee were to try and create trouble for the company can say it hired ninja to try and find the missing employees and usually get out of whatever lawsuit the families try. Naruto though about this. He knew that ninja life wouldn't be saving princesses and countries from evil ninja, but he also didn't think it would be so bureaucratic. Going on missions where no one expected you to succeed seems so pointless. Break's over, let's get back home, Hana announced, and once again they were on their way. Naruto returned back to the library to continue his studies. He felt that it was time for him to focus more on the combat aspect of ninja life and wanted to see what the library had in terms of offensive jutsus. He looked at the sorry state of the genin library in terms of ninjutsu and genjutsu scrolls before copying down everything they had. Everything they had in terms of ninjutsu consisted of 3 fire jutsus and 1 earth jutsu. With genjutsu, he was able to find a book that included a handful of genjutsus and suggested strategies on how to use them. Naruto took his notes of the ninjutsus and checked out the genjutsu book before headed home. He was still disappointed with what he found by the time he went to bed. Seriously, a campfire starting jutsu, a moderate-sized fireball, and a series of small fireballs all coming out of his mouth was all they had in terms of fire jutsu, and this was supposed to be fire country. At least they left him 1 defensive jutsu in the form of an earth wall. He resolved to spend the next day memorizing the hand seals of the jutsu and finding a spot where he could practice. He knew he needed a lake of some size to safely practice fire jutsu while affording him privacy if he needed to let his face mask down. Thanks to the summer job he had in the academy, he knew quite a few of the training grounds, but still needed to check them out again. Naruto settled into Training Ground 7 to begin testing his first offensive jutsu. He had chosen this training ground because there was a small lake he could practice fire jutsu over, and it was one of the training grounds closer to the hospital, which he could go to if he screwed up somehow. The only downside about this location was the closeness to the memorial stone, which might attract ninja. However, the ninja that would be going to visit the memorial stone were likely to be older and probably wouldn't interfere with a young ninja learning C and D rank jutsu. Naruto decided to start with the campfire jutsu. It was a D rank jutsu that ninja often used to start fires or send up flares. It should be easier and a good starting place for the other fire jutsus, which seemed similar. He had memorized the 4 hand seals and practiced them that morning, but he was still feeling apprehensive about trying the jutsu the first time. After all, he was literally going to be starting a fire from within his own body and essentially spitting it out. Okay, here we go. Naruto started the hand seals and prepared his chakra, but stopped halfway through. He couldn't go through with it. He wasn't interrupted or felt something going wrong, in fact he wished that was the case. If he could feel something wrong it would give him an indication that he needed something more. It was just a matter that he was scared of what could happen if he might screw up. Playing with fire is generally a bad idea, and starting one inside your own body on purpose is just plain terrifying. What you doing? A voice from behind him said. Naruto whirled around in surprise. He hadn't heard anyone approaching him, but then he was pretty stressed just now. Naruto saw a jonin standing in front of him wearing a standard jonin outfit and wearing a mask similar to his own. He also had spiky silver hair like a broom and a Hittite covering one of his eyes. Naruto, having calmed down, decided to greet the jonin with a compliment. Hey, nice face mask. The jonin gave what looked like an eye smile. Yeah, not many can wear a face mask as well as me. But like I said before, what are you doing here? Naruto pouted briefly, trying to figure out if the jonin was saying he couldn't pull off the face mask as well as the jonin. He grimaced slightly when the jonin repeated his question, however, not happy that his interruption had returned him to his previous folly. Eventually, he answered the jonin's question. I'm trying to work up the nerve to try a fire jutsu for the first time. The jonin considered his question for a bit before answering. Well, I would ask why a kid who should be in the academy is trying to learn jutsus in the middle of the day. Naruto made to object when the jonin continued on. But I see from your Hittite that you're a ninja already, so you must have graduated early, right? A little less than half a year ago, yes. Naruto answered. So, what problem are you having with learning the jutsu? The jonin asked. At this point, just summoning the courage to try it the first time. I'm just so nervous that if something goes wrong, I will literally be starting a fire from inside my own body. Naruto said, partially relieved just to be telling someone his fears. What jutsu are you starting with? The campfire jutsu. The jonin nodded, a good choice for your first jutsu. One thing that you might want to try if you're nervous is to break the jutsu apart a bit and try to do it in steps. Do it in steps? Naruto asked, confused by what he had said. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for all jutsu, especially the more complicated ones, but the campfire jutsu is pretty simple, so it should be okay. The hand seals to form to make the jutsu act as a guiding force for your chakra to interact the way it should. The last hand seal in almost all fire jutsus is the tiger seal, because it acts as an ignition to the fire. Maybe you should try the first 3 hand seals and focus on forming the basis for the fire and expel it without igniting it. Once you feel more comfortable, you can add the last step. Naruto nodded at what the Jonin had said and thought about it. It sounded like a good way of at least simulating how the jutsu would go without igniting it. He moved to thank the Jonin when he noticed that the Jonin had disappeared. Naruto looked around before seeing him standing in front of the memorial stone. Well, if he's standing there, I probably shouldn't interrupt him any more than I have to. That stone is deeply symbolic to ninja that have lost comrades during missions. Naruto thought with sympathy for the Jonin. In the end, Naruto turned around and started to practice what the Jonin had recommended. He was able to feel the chakra form inside of him before being released into the air. After half an hour of practicing this method, Naruto decided to add the tiger seal to ignite his jutsu. He could feel the flames coming out from his mouth and almost missed the small fireball that had emerged and gone straight to the water. Naruto tested his mouth with his tongue for any damage from the fire, but fortunately there was none. Naruto decided to try the jutsu again, this time adding a bit more chakra and aiming a little higher, so the ball of fire would be slightly larger and travel more distance before hitting the water. As expected, the fireball was a bit bigger and Naruto was able to get a much better look at it. Naruto turned to look once again at the Jonin who had remained in front of the memorial stone. Only this time, the Jonin was watching him. He appeared to give what looked like an eye smile, but was impossible to tell at the distance. Naruto settled for giving the man a short bow to show his gratitude. When he had risen, the Jonin had turned his attention once more to the memorial stone. At this point, Naruto decided to go grab a late lunch before finding a new training spot to work on his earth wall. After all, it wouldn't be very considerate to ruin the tranquility of Training Ground 7 and the memorial stone by creating a huge mess. A week later, Naruto was once again arriving at the mission office, ready to take on a new mission. He had learned all 4 of the ninjutsu he had picked up and made a decent attempt at learning the genjutsu. The genjutsu were more difficult to learn at this point because they needed to be applied to another person to truly know if they were working properly. As loath as he was to use humans as guinea pigs, he supposed that he could try them on bandits if he happened to run into them. Naruto was pondering whether that would be a good thing or a bad thing when he walked through the doorway to the C-rank mission office. Tsukumo. Naruto looked over and saw Hana Inuzuka, who appeared to have been pacing in the office waiting area with her 3 dogs. Feel up for joining me for another search and rescue mission? Hana asked eagerly. Naruto considered the request before eventually reaching the conclusion that he couldn't find it in his heart to turn her down. He nodded and said sure. Hana smiled. Alright, I was just about to head out, so hurry and pack for a search and rescue mission. This is going to be more like the ones I told you about last time, searching for people that probably won't be alive when we find them, so pack for a trip involving lots of wilderness. Meet me at the front gate as soon as you can. Naruto picked up a few things at home before heading out to the main gate. Hana was already standing there with her triplet dogs, but no one else. Just us this time? Naruto asked her. Yep, what's your ID number again? Hana moved over to the gate to give the guard the information he needed. Naruto gave her his number, as she seemed to be in a rush. Naruto used what little time he had left to stretch out his legs a bit for the long run that was almost sure to follow next. As expected, Hana immediately ordered them to move out, headed southeast, to a portion of fire country that was largely unexplored and full of dense forest. As soon as they were on their way, Hana explained her rush. Alright, here is the mission. West Coast Mining ordered that a survey be done of an area to the southeast. They were supposed to report to a village nearby every week to send a message to the company. However, they missed their last check-in by 5 days. The company sent a messenger bird to Konoha to request a team be sent to look for the group. Normally this would be a standard mission, and we could take our time a bit, but the company usually waits a few weeks to give the team more time to check in. This time, however, it seems that the grandson of one of the company vice presidents is in the group, so the company is more willing to send ninja out early. In other words, there is a much greater chance of finding survivors on this mission than in others. Naruto followed along with her as she quickly explained this, but asked, why would you wait for Genin then? I remember the last search and rescue, Ko couldn't move as fast as us, and that would have made the journey much longer than you could have done it yourself. Hana nodded and explained, it's sort of a catch-22 situation. Yes, I can go faster by myself and usually have to slow down and take more breaks with regular Genin, but the search time is significantly reduced when we can split up upon reaching our destination. Plus, the company expects that a team is going to be sent to look for survivors. It wouldn't look good for me to show up alone for too many missions. Companies might get the impression that we are not taking their business seriously and go to another village. Naruto grimaced at the last part. This was the second time that economics and politics had come into a mission, and it probably wouldn't be the last. Naruto realized that it must be one of the responsibilities of Chunin to understand the mindset of the contractor and to make sure they were happy with the services of Konoha. Well, in that case, why don't we pick up the pace a bit? Naruto said eventually. Hana looked at him with a brief amount of surprise before smiling and said, "All right." Hana picked up the pace to that of a low Chunin and grinned even more when she saw Naruto easily keeping up. Hana increased their traveling speed even more during the journey, and due to this, they were able to make it to the village late that night. The villagers confirmed that they hadn't seen anyone from the expedition in almost a week, but were able to give a general direction of where the expedition was last seen. Apparently the group was headed south, toward a group of mountains that was uninhabited by anyone. One of the hunters from the village did say that he heard wolves when he got too close to the area, however. Hana had informed Naruto that if the group had encountered a large group of wolves in an uninhabited area, the wolves would be more likely to attack. In the end, Hana decided to set up camp on the outskirts of the village, so they could travel more quickly in the daylight and recover some of the energy they used to get here so fast. Both Naruto and Hana slept without a guard, feeling relatively safe due to the proximity of the village and the senses of the Haimaru to awaken if there was any trouble. After a short night of 5 hours of sleep, Naruto and Hana quickly packed up their camp and made their way to the group of mountains. It was early in the morning, so the sun was barely rising over the horizon. The trip only took a couple of hours for the ninja traveling through the trees. However, they were able to observe that civilians traveling along the ground would have faced many obstacles in the way of crevices, steep rock outcroppings, and rivers. In fact, Hana decided to stop at a few of these to find the areas in which the expedition would have likely tried to pass said obstacles. After their third stop, the Haimaru were able to find a long crevice with a sturdy tree trunk connecting the two sides. The tree appeared to have been cut down recently, so the Haimaru were able to get a collection of scents that probably belonged to the expedition. Thanks to these, they were able to follow the scents straight to the expedition. They found a temporary camp set up in a flat area near a river. Hana had them observe the area for a few minutes before they moved in to investigate. From what they could see, it didn't look like there was any bandit presence, but bandits mostly hung out near roads and villages, so that wasn't surprising. Hana approached the tents and called out, "Hello. Is anyone here?" Both of them heard a groan coming from one of the tents, when a voice responded back. "Is someone there? Help. Is there a doctor with you?" Hana and Naruto looked into the tent that had the voice coming from it. Inside were two men that looked to be injured. "What happened?" Hana asked as she pulled out a scroll that contained some medical equipment sealed inside. The man who appeared to be less injured replied, "We were digging for mineral samples when we were attacked from behind by wolves. We never saw them coming and they killed half of us before we were able to kill or scare them off." Hana began unwrapping the bandages to look at the damage to the other, unresponsive but still alive, man. "Is there anyone else still alive?" Hana asked as she worked. "Our leader, Jiro. He was scouting out other areas at the time of attack and only managed to arrive at the end. He hauled both of us here and tried to treat us as best he could," the man said as Hana began looking at the damage to his legs. "Where is he now?" Naruto asked. "He went out to gather wood for a signal fire, hoping the villagers might see it. I told him he should try to make it to the village for help, but he said that he's already stopped the wolves from making a second attempt once already, and if he left we wouldn't stand a chance." Hana nodded. "Sakumo, take 2 of my dogs and go look for him. Bring him back here." Naruto nodded and patted 2 of the Haimaru's heads, to motion which ones should lead him to Jiro. Within 5 minutes, Naruto found the young man gathering firewood for what appeared to be a desperate attempt at a signal fire. "Jiro?" Naruto asked, as he approached the young man. The man turned and looked confused for a moment before remembering his situation. "Hey, are you traveling with a doctor?" Naruto, who figured this man had no clue as to how to explain the presence of a kid appearing out of nowhere, decided to tell the man who he was. "My name is Sakumo Hayashi. I am one of the Ninja West Coal Mining hired to find your expedition. My team leader is currently treating your men and needs your presence." Jiro looked doubtful at first when he heard that the child was a ninja, but perked up at the comment of a leader treating his men. "Let's go," he said as Naruto finished his last sentence. Upon returning to the camp, Naruto and Jiro found Hana mixing what appeared to be a healing salve for the wounds the men had been inflicted with. Jiro looked around before asking, "Is it just the 2 of you?" Hana saw the expression he was making and decided to repeat the words she shared with Naruto previously. "When we got the request, Konoha notified myself, one of the lead trackers, to head out, and find you as fast as possible. Due to the earliness of the day, Sakumo was the only genin I could find that was able to keep up with me. We could have waited for a bigger party, but we wouldn't have arrived for at least another day, probably 2. Jiro nodded at this remark. Well, thank you for arriving when you did. I'm not sure we would have lasted if those damn wolves had attacked again. Transporting the injured men back to the village was a bit of a pain, as there were only 2 of them, and Naruto wasn't exactly big enough to carry one of the men. Strong enough maybe, but big enough to carry even the least injured without aggravating the injuries, no. In the end, Hana showed Naruto how to make a stretcher, and they were able to make 3 separate trips back to the village, leaving the Haimaru behind to guard the survivors from any more wolves. Hana used this as an opportunity to tell Naruto another reason why she liked having genin accompany her. It made relocating survivors much easier. Naruto was forced to agree, as having 2 separate trips carrying a stretcher was not the most pleasant experience. Still, the mission was a success, and the team leader, Jiro, was the important grandson of the company executive, so the company would probably be happy. The injured members had admitted to thinking that Jiro was just a spoiled kid in a leadership position prior to the expedition. They expected him to run away as soon as the wolves made themselves known. Boy, were they surprised when the spoiled kid not only fought the wolves off, but refused to abandon them. Naruto imagined that his reputation within the company would increase as a result. And because he was saved by Konoha ninja, he would probably be more likely to hire them if he was ever in a position to do so. Politics and economics again. By the time Naruto and Hana had arrived back at Konoha, Naruto decided that he was developing a fondness for these types of missions. He hoped that in the future Hana could teach him more about tracking. In fact, it was that idea that led him to a certain remark to Hana that he almost regretted. Hey Hana, Naruto said as they were about to part ways in Konoha. If you need someone to accompany you on these missions, feel free to come to my apartment to ask me. Hana looked surprised before grinning. Are you sure, Sakumo? Sometimes they wake me up in the middle of the night. Naruto pressed his advantage. Just promise me you'll teach me how to track when you can. Done, was all Hana said to that. For the next few months, Hana requested that Naruto join her on missions almost every time she had one. Twice now, she had woken him from his sleep to join her on missions in the middle of the night. On both of those missions, it had been just Hana and him, and her dogs of course. Other times, she had tracked him down wherever he was, usually a training ground or the library, to accompany her and the other genin she had chosen. As promised, she had taught him quite a bit about tracking so far. She had lent him books the Inuzuka had on basic tracking and had taught him how to channel chakra to his nose, in order to track things down by scent. Naruto was still quite new at it, and wrong more often than he was right when it came to following the correct scent, but it was a pretty good start for a non-Inuzuka. Hana had asked him to join her this afternoon for lunch at the Korean barbecue restaurant at noon for lunch. Naruto wondered what that was about, but trusted Hana enough to know she probably wouldn't be wasting his time. Although, Naruto did make sure to wear a face mask with a slit in the mouth area for eating, so that he wouldn't have to reveal his whisker marks to her. Naruto entered the restaurant, and immediately saw Hana sitting in a corner booth. He walked over and sat across from her. Hey, what's up? Hana smiled at him, motioning to the waitress to place their orders. When that was done, Hana hedged for a few seconds before asking him what his plans were for the future. What do you mean? If you have a mission I'm free, but you probably don't mean that. Naruto replied, a bit confused as to her question. I mean, what are your career plans for the future? Hana clarified. Oh, well, I guess my original plan was to join the Genin Reserve Corps for a year to make sure I was ready to join a Genin team. The academy year ends in 3 to 4 months, so I guess I'll try to apply for a team, Naruto said, after some thought. Hana nodded before continuing on. That's what I assumed you would say. I'd like to propose something else though. I recommend you to take my place in search and rescue as a Chunin, so I can apply for the Medic Nin program. Naruto stared at her for a full minute. That would mean that I would have to be promoted to Chunin. I'm pretty sure I'm not ready for that. Hana grinned before responding. You're a lot closer than you think. You've probably heard of the Chunin exams as a way most people receive the promotion. Naruto nodded. But actually only a handful of people get promoted that way every year. Most people are given regular promotions either from one of the elders or the Jonin commander. In order to get that promotion, you need to show them that you are ready and that you are needed at the commander level. So, since you want to leave, and I am someone with a lot of experience with search and rescue missions, I would be your natural successor. Is that what you're saying? Naruto concluded. Yes. With a recommendation from me and your history of search and rescue missions, you would be a prime candidate. Naruto thought about this for a moment. If he took her offer, he would be a Chunin years ahead of schedule and would know what kind of missions he would be getting for the next few years. He considered the pros versus the cons. The pros were becoming a Chunin, getting access to better training materials, and advancing his career. The cons, on the other hand, were being locked in the position until he could find a replacement, closer scrutiny from superiors, and difficulty dealing with older subordinates. By now their food had arrived and they were both eating silently, Hana giving him time to think about the situation. By the end of the meal, Naruto decided he couldn't let this opportunity pass him by. Most genin searched high and low for the opportunity to rise to Chunin. But if he was going to do this, he was going to get some concessions out of Hana. Naruto looked at Hana with resolve. Alright, but I have some conditions. Hana smiled before pausing and motioning him to speak. First of all, you will continue to take me on missions for a few months. During the time that we are off duty, you will teach me to the best of your ability. By the time I take over, I want to be as good as a non-Inuzuka can be at tracking. Hana nodded at that, willing to train him if it meant she could move her career towards her passion. Okay, we can. Second, Naruto interrupted, showing he was not done with his conditions. You will train me to be as good a Chunin in other, non-tracking fields. If I become a Chunin, I don't just want it to be because I had only one skill. Third, I've been trying to learn Genjutsu, but have no one to test my skills on except the occasional bandit. I realize this might be awkward, but I need someone to give me feedback on what works and what doesn't. With that, Naruto nodded that those were his conditions. Hana thought about the last two. She had no problem with the first request. After all, if he couldn't handle the missions, she would likely be drafted back to take over again, and that would be a black mark on her record. Training him to be as good as a Chunin would take some hard work and would cut into her time studying for medical training, but if it meant that she would be free of her constant search and rescue missions, she was willing to put in the time. The same could be said for his Genjutsu training. Deal. Hana finally decided. Naruto was on his way to his first off-duty lesson with Hana. He had been planning on applying for a genin team, but after thinking about it, this was probably a better option. Now that he had time to think, he probably would have had a similar experience to the one he had the last year if he had just applied for a genin team to start with. A few months of D ranks and training followed by a series of C rank missions. The paranoia that had worked itself into his daily life as Naruto Uzumaki the monster had clearly seeped into his existence of Tsukumo Hayashi the unknown. Naruto wondered what his life would be like now as a team genin. Would he be best friends with his teammates? Or would he be constantly at odds with them? Would his sensei be a supportive leader and teacher or a damaged jonin just drifting through the rest of his life? Either way, Naruto had made his choice. In a few months, he would be a Chunin, and wouldn't experience a genin team until he took one for himself. Resolved with his choices in life, Naruto knocked on the entrance to the Inuzuka clan compound. As expected, as soon as he did, he heard what sounded like dozens of dogs starting to bark as one. He always wondered how clans knew someone was at the gate without stationing a permanent guard there. The Inuzuka clan had dogs that would bark instantly, but he had no idea how the other clans did it. As he was expected to be here at this time, it was Hana who answered the door. Come on in, Tsukumo. He was led inside where he immediately encountered a second gate and fence, which held back dozens of dogs from getting out when the main door was opened. Hana opened the gate enough for him to squeeze through as half a dozen dogs literally surrounded him trying to get his attention. Naruto patted a few of their heads, but that only seemed to make them more excited. Hana seemed content to just watch as the dogs, mostly puppies, jumped up to try and play with him. Eventually a new voice was heard coming from the main house. Hey, settle down. The dogs, for the most part, sat down on the ground obediently, although a few of them looked like they wanted to keep playing. A woman was approaching from the distance. She was wearing a standard jonin vest and had spiky brown hair with Inuzuka face markings. Naruto noted, however, that she had a distinctly more feral look to her than Hana did. As she neared, she looked at Naruto with a questioning expression. So, who are you? Hana eventually decided to speak. Mother, this is Tsukumo Hayashi, one of the genin I prefer to work with on my missions. I'm going to try and train him to replace me. Naruto straightened out as Hana addressed her mother. He knew from speaking with Hana that her mother was the clan matriarch. Inuzuka-sama, it's an... No, none of that now. Hana's mother interrupted him immediately. My name is Sum. Inuzukas don't stand on formalities like all the other uptight clans. Naruto looked over to see Hana smirking evilly, enjoying watching him get chewed out by her mother. Well, if that's funny to her, let's see how she likes this, Naruto thought, coming up with a prank. Thank you, Tsum-san. I'm very grateful Hana-sama is giving me the chance to prove myself. Hana-sama? The elder Inuzuka said questioningly as she turned to her daughter. Hana, surprised at this turn of events, quit smirking as she saw her mother's gaze. What? No, Sakumo, what are you saying? It's just Hana. Naruto decided to give her a wink while Tsume's back was to him. But the last time I didn't call you Hana-sama, you had your dogs chase me for hours. What? Sakumo. Say that isn't true. Hana panicked as she saw her mother's eyes narrow. Luckily, she was saved as Naruto couldn't take it and started laughing out loud. Sorry, Tsume-san. Hana looked like she was enjoying watching me get scolded a little too much. Jerk. Hana punched him on the arm before leading him away from her mother. Tsume watched the two training out in the yard for the last few hours. They started out with a bit of taijutsu, in which her daughter was rougher on him than she probably normally would have been, but the young boy seemed to be at least able to keep up. The boy's form was a bit crude, but not bad for a genin, especially for a genin his age. After their taijutsu warm-up, Hana led him to the portion of the yard where Inuzukas and their dogs usually trained their senses. Sakumo seemed to be a somewhat novice at the subject, but appeared to have at least some previous training. It would be at least a few weeks until he was ready to use it in the field. As Hana was introducing him to various scents and what they meant, Tsume pondered how the last few months had been for Hana. In the last few months, Hana had been a bit more relaxed both before and after missions. Just a few months ago, Tsume could tell that the missions were starting to get to her daughter. Being constantly on call and having to go on many missions solo were beginning to affect her. Tsume was always concerned when Hana couldn't find any genin to accompany her, but her missions were usually too low ranked to necessitate them, and had to be completed as quickly as they came in. Recently, however, Hana had seemed less stressed about this fact and had revealed that a genin with a lot of potential had given her permission to seek him out for mission in the future, even waking him up in the middle of the night. Tsume had to admit, seeing a boy his age was discomforting as it made her maternal instincts want to ban him from missions, but the way that he had interacted with her daughter showed that they had a friendship that was developing nicely. She had been originally outraged that her daughter forced a young child to address her as Hana-sama, but that it was all a joke made her laugh now that she thought about it. She would look forward to seeing Sakumo for the next few months and getting to know him a bit better. 3 months later, Naruto age 10. Ugh, Hana grunted as she felt she took another hit in the back. When Sakumo had asked to test genjutsu, she never thought it would turn into this. Hana had spent the last few months spending almost every day training with her successor. During missions, he had taken the lead and did all the tracking with Hana watching over him, supervising and correcting mistakes. At first, there was a lot of trial and error for the young genin, but recently, the mistakes had been growing less and less common. The last mission that they had gone on, Hana corrected 0 of the things he did, and walked through the mission merely as an observer. He was ready. His taijutsu was still a shade less advanced than most rookie chunin were, even at the beginning, but that could be explained by the fact that he was still very young. In fact, Sakumo was able to recognize that with the way he performed his genjutsus. The traditional way to use genjutsu was to distract or terrify an individual into being subdued by fear. That is not what Sakumo did. Sakumo instead used genjutsu to make small unnoticeable changes that Hana struggled to identify. Sakumo made it so that in a fight with him, you could trip over an unseen rock or root that he had made invisible. In a fist fight with him, he was capable of making it seem that he was striking at your head, only to try and block what turned out to be an illusion as he struck you in the body. He was even capable of hiding weapons in his hands under the illusion they were empty. When she first found out he could do that, it had terrified her. Sakumo would be a dangerous person fight unprepared. She had put in her request for a hearing to determine whether or not he was ready for promotion yesterday. Soon, a decision would be made. Shikaku Nara reviewed his paperwork for the next request. He usually spent 2 or 3 days dealing with his duties as Jonin commander before trying to go on a mission with his old teammates. The Hokage, who was starting to get older however, was starting to give him more authority in hopes of lessening his own workload. Unfortunately, he couldn't say no to the Hokage, so that meant less time for easy missions with his friends. Shikaku looked over the request. Hana Inuzuka, the current Chunin on call for low-rank search and rescue missions, was proposing that she had found a successor, and would like him to promote it so she could enter the Medic Nin program. It was in his power to grant regular promotion for a genin to Chunin, but he liked to interview the candidates himself to make sure they were ready. In this case, he would definitely be doing it, as he found out that the genin was only 10 years old. He let his secretary know to send in Hana first. As she entered, he took one more look at her file. Hana Inuzuka, age 15, Chunin for search and rescue missions for the last 2 years, studying to become a medic nin. Take a seat, he said as he saw her enter the room. First of all, I see you have a good mission history and would like to enter the medic nins, an admirable goal. I want to make sure your choice for successor is ready for the responsibility. How did you arrive at the choice to nominate Tsukumo Hayashi? Shikaka began, as he dug out Tsukumo's name from the pile of paperwork. I first met Tsukumo-san when I was looking for Genin for a mission one early morning. He had realized that if he showed up early to the mission office, he could choose which missions to go on, rather than waiting a few hours and begging to go on a mission period. Hana said, to highlight the fact that Tsukumo had the intelligence to both figure out the system and choose his own missions. I remember it because on his previous mission he had his first kill and was looking for a mission that didn't involve killing. I immediately took notice of him because he was able to keep up with me at my traveling speed and was confused as to why the other genin accompanying us could not keep up. He performed well on the mission, and although the mission later involved killing bandits, he was able to make his second kill while defending one of the rescue victims. Shikaka nodded and made notes. The second mission with him was a week later, when it was just the two of us. We traveled to the target site at Chunin level speed this time, and he kept up with me without problem. Because of that, we were able to arrive in time to rescue 3 people who had survived being attacked by wolves, 2 of whom were injured. After that mission, he told me I was free to search him out for future missions. From that point on, whenever I had a mission, I immediately took him with me. He would accompany me when I received missions during the middle of the night, and when I was able to gather other genin. Hana continued. At what point did you offer him to become your successor? Shikaka asked. About 3 months ago. He agreed on the condition that I train him in tracking and that I help him get his other skills up to Chunin level. Hana defended. How would you access his skill level? Shikaka said as he turned to Paige to take her answer down. His tracking is as good as a non-Inuzuka can be. I let him take the lead on the last few missions, and he only made very minor mistakes. The kind of mistakes that it usually takes even Inuzukas a few dozen missions worth of experience to refine. His taijutsu is a bit below average for a Chunin, but for his age is awesome. I've seen him do ninjutsu, but only a few fire jutsus and 1 earth jutsu. He has a real talent for genjutsu on the other hand. He uses it not to intimidate or subdue, but to fool. He can literally make himself appear to be a weak target only for him to strike under cover of genjutsu before you even know what hit you. Hana raved. In fact, I'd say that intelligence is one of his best assets. Despite the fact that obviously he would need to be intelligent to graduate early from the academy, his intelligence seems to be more tied to the real world than it does to be book smart. He knows that his body is still developing, so he's focused on building up his other skills first. Very well. Shikaka concluded. For the record, you feel that he is ready to assume the duties of a Chunin? Absolutely, Hana said with full conviction. Shikaka nodded before dismissing her and asking her to send him in. As he observed, the genin that walked into the room appeared to be quite young. The fact that he was up for promotion only a year after he graduated early was not too surprising, but it was surprising that it was not happening in a Chunin exam. Please take a seat, Tsukumo-san. I have a few questions to ask before a determination can be made. First of all, Shikaka began, please tell me why I see you applied for the Genin Reserve Corps instead of joining a Genin team like everyone else. Well, Narasama, as you know, I graduated early from the academy, but what you don't know is that I feel like I graduated too early. I was skipped past the 3rd year as I already knew most of the academy jutsus and was entered into the 4th year. I thought I would have 2 years to refine my skills and make sure I was prepared to enter a team comprised mostly of kids that were raised in a ninja clan. I felt like when I had been skipped up to the graduating class halfway through the year, I probably missed out on a lot of the less important, in regards to the academy grading system, subjects. Naruto began to explain. I decided to take a year to train and study using the Genin library. I would take a few missions to get some experience before applying for a Genin team the next year. I realize I might have been a little misguided about the level of the other graduates, but I don't think it worked out too badly. I was fully intending to apply for a Genin team when Hana proposed to make me her successor. Shikaka nodded his head as he began to understand Tsukumo's way of thought. He saw that Tsukumo was originally from the Fire Temple, so it isn't inconceivable that he had a slightly unrealistic opinion of clan-raised children. Not that he's wrong compared to clans like the Uchiha, he thought of the clan that basically raised their children to be warriors from day one. What sorts of training and studying did you do? Naruto internally reviewed what he did before answering. Well, first I went to the Genin library to plan out my year, and that's where I started to realize that maybe I should have just gone into a Genin team. The Genin library is pretty pitiful. I was honestly expecting a bit more. Shikaka grimaced slightly as he thought about the rather bare shelves in the Genin section in the library. But I was still able to study quite a bit. I studied greater chakra control, trap making, strategy, weapons, field medicine, and etiquette. I signed up for a week-long course at the hospital to study field medicine. During that time I took D ranks and scouted out the best times to look for C ranks. Later on I learned all the elemental ninjutsu and genjutsu they had in the genin section. Naruto boasted, trying to make sure the Jonin commander knew he wasn't wasting his time. Shikaku made more notes on his papers before he decided to change topics a bit. Very well, let me shift topics a bit. What do you think are the primary roles and responsibilities of a chunin? What does it mean to be chunin? Well, I suppose for me, it's a bit easier because I know what my primary role as a chunin will be. I will be in charge of taking most of the search and rescue missions. I will have to be constantly on call, ready to head out in an instant if a mission comes in. The greater role or a chunin, however, is to act as both a leader and a protector of his team. I will have to assert my authority, especially due to my age, to make sure that any genin under me understand that I am in charge of the missions and that I am capable of both making the correct calls in the field and making sure my team is safe. Above that, I have learned from watching my chunin commanders over the last year that a chunin also needs to consider the economic and political actions of each decision. Shikaku's eyebrows raised at that point before telling him to explain. There are many ninja villages that people can hire to do work. Konoha ninja have to make sure that we are providing good service in the forms that they can appreciate. For example, when Hana is performing a search and rescue mission, there is a good chance that she could find and escort the victims to safety much faster if she were traveling alone than with a team of genin that can't keep up with her. But if she didn't work with a team, the employers might see this as a sign that we are not taking their contract seriously. In order to make sure our clients are happy with our service, a chunin has to weigh every decision in the field. In short, it's just as or possibly even more important that chunin are smart as well as strong. Shikaku internally smiled. This kid gets it. He's ready for chunin. Both Naruto and Hana stood in front of Shikaku as he completed the paperwork. Hana Inuzuka, your request for the promotion of Tsukumo Hayashi is accepted. Tsukumo Hayashi, you are hereby promoted to the rank of chunin. Congratulations. Both Hana and Naruto broke out into grins and hugged each other. Hana-san, you are free of your post and allowed to apply for medical nin training. Tsukumo-san, you are now the chunin on call for low-ranking search and rescue missions. I expect you to carry out your duties well. Naruto, age 11, 1 year after promotion. Naruto and his team were exploring a relatively unknown section of T country. Due to a slight break in search and rescue missions, in which Naruto hadn't had any missions in almost a month, Konoha gave him an exploratory mission instead. A client wanted a Konoha team to explore a mountainous region of T country for any unknown settlements, mineral samples, and any paths that could be found to get through mountain group. The mission had tried to be done by a civilian team earlier, only to run into problems due to the number of treacherous routes they had tried. Naruto was leading yet another group of whiny genin to accompany him. If there was one thing he now hated more than any other, it was a group of whiny genin. Why is a kid leading us? He could hear a shrieking voice in his head. I don't want to go that way, let's go this way, another annoying voice had said in his mind. He had heard them all, and he was sick of it. Naruto was starting to go to bed hoping he would be awoken in the middle of the night, just so he could have an excuse to go on missions alone. Over the last year, Naruto had faithfully served in his position as the chunin on-call for search and rescue missions. He had been on dozens of missions and had led many genin safely to either the victims or the bodies of the victims. There was one thing that made it all worth it, however. One thing that made him willing to put up with the constant sameness of missions, the whiny genin, and the slow genin. That one thing was the chunin section of the library. The chunin section, unlike the genin section, contained incredibly more information. It seems that when librarians are deciding what section to place ninja information, the default is the chunin section. If information is incredibly basic, it goes to the genin section. If information is classified high level or more dangerous, it goes to the jonin section. But by default, everything originally goes to the chunin section. Naruto had already been able to learn quite a few new skills, including a deeper understanding of all the skills he had previously studied. He maximized his training schedule when he was off duty, never knowing when a mission was about to come up and take him away. He also followed a previous idea of finding ways he could be training when he wasn't doing anything. On that subject, an area he had been concentrating on lately was elemental chakra control. The chunin library contained dozens of ways to train elemental control, and many of them he could do when he was resting and waiting for genin to recover from traveling speed. He had bought a piece of chakra paper from a ninja store to find out his primary element, and surprise, surprise, it was fire. He supposed that was expected, seeing as how this was fire country. Either way, he had already completed every fire control exercise in the chunin library, and was trying to invent new ones to increase his already strong affinity. He also had copies of the control exercises for other elements, hoping to at least be able to use them as efficiently as he could, even if they weren't as easy as fire. Tsukumo-san, I found what looks like a pass to the other side of the mountain. One of the genin interrupted his train of thought. Naruto looked at the genin. Shinsen was one of the genin he had worked with before and was once annoying as the others. But since he had done missions with him before, he at least understood that Naruto was a chunin, and this was not some joke. Let's wait for the others, then we'll check it out together, Naruto told the older genin. His team was currently in the center of the mountain cluster. There were no hidden settlements inside, like the client had suspected, and they had already collected mineral samples. The previous team had done an acceptable job of looking for ways into the cluster looking on the east side, but they had missed a cave that seemed to go through almost the entire mountain. A fortunate find his team had made when looking for a place to set up camp. Now that they were inside, a search for exits should be easier than looking for entrances. 15 minutes later, his team had assembled in the meeting spot to review their findings. Indeed, Shin was the only one who found a passable route, as the others were either blocked or too treacherous. 5 minutes later, they were on their way to test out this route. The passage he had found was a bit steep at a few moments, but with a little work, a civilian crew should make it passable. Naruto took all this down on his sketch of the area and made sure to leave ribbons tied to significant trees or rocks in order to highlight the path to any others who would be following. Alright, let's head back to Kawamoto to report our findings, Naruto announced to his team. Naruto prepared himself for the trip of running at low genin speed for an hour, waiting half an hour for them to recover while training his earth chakra control, before trying to run again for an hour.